morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 6 and Episode 901 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada. Always 100% Canadian, and of course, always Beaverific. Today, recording day, is Tuesday, May 5th, 2026, and as you might be able to tell here, given how pale I am here and washed out, it is a gorgeous sunshiny day here at the Beaver Lodge. I'm going to see if I can reduce my light a little bit and maybe gain a little bit of my regular color. Maybe I don't need any light right now. Let's see how that goes. Off. There we go. Doesn't really change much right now. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast funding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and cubs, how is your mental health doing today? I'm doing well, a bit challenged only by fatigue. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know exactly if it's unfortunately or fortunately, but last night, my beaver sweetie came back home from a dinner with some friends that I chose not to attend because I was feeling a little peopled out. And wanted some snuggles. So we went for snuggles, but my beaver sweetie happens to give the world's best snuggles, and often when we snuggle, I fall asleep, which is what happened. But it was about an hour and a half prior to my usual uh, aspired to bedtime that I very rarely reach. Uh, and I did my whole sleeping in that period and was up around 3 o'clock in the morning to start the day. Well, all my sleeping, about 4 hours, um, which is not enough. Um, 4 or 5 hours, yeah, not enough. And so right now, I am at about, oh, I don't know, 40 minutes ago started finding the spot where you're hammering nails sometimes. You're just like sitting there and all of a sudden just hammering nails with your forehead. So yeah, I have I'm a little bit sleepy and um the lack of sleep a little bit unfocused. Um, it's hard to keep the focus, so I will do my do my best, but I'm working on fumes right now. I'm running on fumes, and that is indeed the best snuggles. And I am a Um, I am both a cookie monster and a cuddle monster. So, and if it's cuddling while eating cookies, I'm a very happy beaver. I have very, very simple needs: hot chocolate, tennis, cuddles, cookies. I'm pretty happy. It's a good life. uh, let's see. Ooh, oh my God. Can uncover. That's some big, big news. That'll definitely be big news in this house. Romania's pro-European coalition collapses after Prime Minister fails no confidence vote. Uh, let's go take a quick look at that, because that is some big news, especially considering everything going on right now in Europe. And um, Romania is one of those nations, as my Beaver sweetie keeps on telling me, that has never invaded anyone, but has repeatedly been invaded. So let's go to EU here, and this is courtesy of Ferdinand Knapp. The Romanian parliament ousted center-right Prime Minister Ili Boloyan by passing a vote of no confidence in his government on Tuesday. This censure motion is false, cynical, and artificial, Boloyan lamented during the tense debate held prior to the vote. Any country in a multitude of crises would try to consolidate governments, not change them. The center-left Social Democratic Party played a decisive role in the successful no-confidence vote. Fed up with Bucharest's severe austerity policies, last month the group pulled out of the government led by Boloyan's National Liberal Party and announced that they would work with the far-right Alliance for the Union of Romanians to oust the Prime Minister. The Social Democratic Party is going to work with the far-right Alliance? Okay, politics makes strange bedfellows. The move came as a surprise to the Socialists and Democrats group in the European Parliament, to which the PSD belongs. Yeah, I can imagine they would be surprised. After spending years scolding the center-right European People's Party for forging similar alliances with the far-right, the developments in Romania put the EU's premier center-left group in an awkward spot. Boloyan and his center-right National Liberal Party have been in power since 2025, following former Prime Minister Marcel Ciolacu's resignation. His ouster comes less than a year after Romania held a divisive presidential election in which the moderate mayor of Bucharest, Nicu Șordan, defeated the Alliance for the Union of Romanians leader George Simion, and that was after an initial first-round vote had been cancelled, if you remember correctly, because it seems that there was a lot of foreign interference in that one. Simeon is widely considered to be the mastermind behind Boloyan's fall. His far-right party is surging in the polls, and its odds are likely to improve even further in a period of extended instability that will threaten the country's already precarious economic outlook. Romania must complete key reforms by August to unlock around $11 billion in EU funding, and if it doesn't get its public finances in order, it may also face a credit rating downgrade. The far-right leader called for snap elections during Tuesday's debate in Parliament. Quote, "We assume the future of this country, a future government, and restore the hope of the Romanians," he said. Romania's destiny must be decided by the votes of the Romanians. But snap elections before the end of the current parliamentary term in 2028 are considered unlikely. Instead, President Dan is now expected to begin consultations with party leaders to form a new coalition government under a new prime minister. One possibility is that Boloyan's Liberals and the Socialists will form a new partisanship under an independent technocrat. It says here, another possibility is that Boloyan will be tapped to lead a minority government, leaving the PSD in the opposition alongside Simeon's far-right lawmakers. I guess there could be another option that Boloyan leaves. And if that party gets another leader, maybe. But maybe the PSD will want to keep working with him, I guess. Boloyan is the seventh prime minister to be toppled by a no-confidence vote since the restoration of democratic rule following the 1989 Romanian Revolution. Ahead of the no-confidence vote, Dan sought to calm both domestic voters and European allies. Quote, "I want to assure Romanians that regardless of what happens one way or another, Romania will continue to maintain its western direction," he said during a press conference on Monday. "There may be 1 or 2 weeks of uncertainty, but it should not worry us because there's commitment to the important objectives." All right. Keep calm and Nicu Șordan on, I guess. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Kit Uncover, and I will definitely share that with my Beaver sweetie. All right. Oh yes, Kit Linda, don't forget the turtles. Yes, I did forget the turtles. Naughty Beaver. Thank you for being there to remind me. Linda says Romania borders Ukraine to the north. Not good if forces hostile to Europe get into power. Yes. And on the other side of Romania, you have Moldova, which Russia also has its eye on. And we've talked about that country a little bit too. All right. Let's see. What do we have here, kids and cubs? Yeah, we have a lot to deal with today. So I'm going to do a couple of quick hits before we get into the meat of the issue. First of all, today is Red Dress Day, observed every year on March 5th as the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, and, of course, gender diverse people, or 2S LGBTQI plus people. Over recently, Leah Gazan mercilessly mocked for having used the extremely long acronym MMIWG2SLGBTQI plus, which I will readily admit is a little much in terms of saying it. Of course, using it and whatnot. You know, you're trying to identify people, and there's a lot of different people to identify clearly here. Some people have said that things like things like this is MMIG2SLGBTQI plus. This is the stuff that drives people crazy from the left. This is the stuff. Yeah, I don't listen. I'm part of the rainbow community, and I've just started saying rainbow community because it's starting to become a mouthful. um, and like I said, I'm from the community, and even I admit it's becoming a mouthful. But when we're talking of such matters, representation matters, right? Some people have made the comment, the fact that Ms. Kazan decided to make a point of highlighting the mockery and standing against it also is the types of things that drive certain people a little crazy. That thinking that left stuff goes a little too far, and showing that the NDP might not be serious about, you know, focusing more on pocketbook issues and left-wing populism and affordability and the eat the rich type thing, class warfare issues. This sort of symbolism type thing gets a little much. Again, everybody's personal mileage varies. That's the whole raging against the political correctness thing. Listen, I see both sides of the argument in the sense of just strict communications. You want stuff that's easy to say and that rolls off the tongue easily, and that everybody can understand and doesn't create, a barrier or noise. There are certain people who may be somewhat sympathetic, but once you start bringing out the entire alphanumeric soup, um, you lose them, right? Again, different strokes, different folks. That's why we need multi-layered, multi-pronged communication strategies to talk to different people in different codes, code switch if you want, with the various groups, so that you can present your case to them in a manner that is going to be they are going to be receptive to. So I understand both those things, but at I also find it kind of ridiculous to actually mock this type of thing in the first place, or to point out it's not like the people, using these terms are not very acutely aware that that's a lot of numbers and letters. Um, but it distracts from the importance of the actual subject. I mean, if we're going to be talking about Red Dress Day and we're going to be talking about what it means and why it matters, then someone deciding to come into the conversation. Why do you have to use all these letters and numbers? Takes the conversation somewhere else and pulls the focus away from the people that we're talking about on that day. Um, so, as a communications person, you're sitting there, and you basically, the battle here is making everybody who is very, very deeply impacted by this, and this is very emotionally charged. Has been a lot of loss and a lot of grief around these issues. Um, Making sure that they feel seen and heard at the same time as uh, you wanting to have a message that is compact and that's concise, so that when people say, "Why should I care about this?" You can tell them, right? And they don't turn the channel. You have two competing interests here. Um, but that fight, like I said, distracts from the main point of the day. Now, the significance of red for Red Dress Day is that the color red is used because it's believed to be the only color spirits can see. It's used to call back the spirits of missing loved ones. Um, the whole day is inspired by Métis artist Jamie Black's Red Dress project in 2010, which used red dresses as a visual art installation to represent the racialized and gendered violence against Indigenous women. The day serves to bring awareness to the fact that Indigenous women and girls are disproportionately affected by violence, making up a significant portion of homicide victims despite being a small percentage of the population. So to participate in the day, many people wear red clothing, hang red dresses in trees or windows, and attend vigils or walks to show solidarity. I should have worn my red today. I apologize. I did wear it yesterday, but today is the day that counts, of course. And of course, the purpose of the day serves to remember those lost, educate the public, and demand action from governments to end the ongoing crisis. So there you have it, kids and cubs. For those who are observing, I hope that you are surrounded with love and support and validation on this day. It's also Dutch Liberation Day, kids, and because we mentioned yesterday, I showed you that little picture when we were coming off the show about I believe in Apeldoorn, I think it is, hanging a flag outside the window. That's a tradition out there. It's a way that people say thank you all these decades later. Um, I've been to the Netherlands a couple times, but I've still never been at this particular time of year, and I've always told myself that if I were to go back, I would go back at this time because it's something I haven't experienced yet. And it's if you haven't been, and if you have the opportunity or the means, I really recommend taking some time to go to the Netherlands because there is probably no country in the world in which we are better treated. And I mean, Canadians are pretty well treated everywhere that we go. But when you go to the Netherlands, it's just an entirely different level when they know you're from Canada. Um, so, yeah, very important day. There is a heritage moment about it, and Kit Uncover has made sure that we have it. So I will save it for the end of the show. I think it would be a good way to close the show after the credits. So two big days, and yesterday I was mentioning that there was because there were some observances yesterday as well, and I was able to remember the first, um, but for some reason I couldn't remember the second. It had completely escaped me, and it seems that the uh, yesterday, the other day that was the one that I missed, Ukrainian Advocacy Day. So there was some events on the Hill going on with that, and that definitely ended up dovetailing rather well with the announcement of 270 million additional dollars for Ukraine. I do not believe that this was new money. I believe that was money that was already committed. But we found out specifically yesterday what it would serve. Um, and of course, the day that I did remember yesterday was, and I'm just looking for it because now today I'm the one who can't remember it. uh, uh, sl- Sleepy, foggy brain today. Sleepy, foggy brain today. And why can't I find what day it was? My God, that's so terrible. Oh yeah, there it was. Not day. Of course, it's Emergency Preparedness Week. There we go. So now I have it all. Emergency Preparedness Week, Canadian Advocacy Day yesterday, today Red Dress Day, and Dutch Liberation Day. Uh, so lots going on over here. Today also on um, events going on around the Hill. Industry Minister Melanie Joly will team up with Evan Solomon. Oh, sorry. Pardon me, kids and cubs. I am reading yesterday's stuff to you all over again. Again, foggy brain. Today on the Hill and around, what I was meaning to say is that first, it seems that the Prime Minister will be making an announcement around 10:30 this morning that will be a big one. We'll be naming who is the next Governor General. According to his itinerary, Mark Carney will reveal who will succeed Mary Simon as vice-regal representative later this morning, with the next resident of Rideau Hall expected to be, this is what we know, fully bilingual in English and French, which cites two sources are citing that it will also be a woman. A lot of people have been guessing. People have been thinking about journalist Céline Galipeau, for example, from Radio-Canada. One of the more interesting names that I've heard bandied about as a potential could be Justice Louise Arbour. She definitely has had the record of achievement that would be required, and she definitely has the gravitas for the position. And she's extremely well respected, not only in Canada but internationally. That could be a very good choice, but I don't know if you guys have any speculation. Would love to hear it. It says here that, pardon me, excuse me, to Ashley Burke and Kate McKenna of CBC. It says the formal announcement of the new Governor General is made after the King officially approves the Prime Minister's recommendation. This will be his most high-profile selection since taking office last year. The current Governor General, Mary Simon, is nearing the end of 5 years as in the vice-regal role at Rideau Hall, and she made history as the country's first Indigenous Governor General. Her husband, Whit Fraser, told the Globe and Mail last month that they were planning their exit from Rideau Hall. Simon, who is Inuk, has spent her time in office focusing on reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, advocating for destigmatization. I'm having trouble today. Advocating for destigmatizing mental health, diversity, and nature. During her mandate, Simon has faced criticism for her lack of proficiency in French. She speaks English and Inuktitut, but despite taking French lessons, hasn't become fluent in that language. The government paid more than $52,000 for 324 hours of French classes as of last year, Simon's office said in response to questions by the Bloc Québécois. By the end of 2021, the Commissioner of Official Languages received more than 1,300 official complaints related to Simon's appointment that year. Then Commissioner Raymond Théberge ruled in 2022 that Simon's nomination process didn't violate federal legislation concerning bilingualism. Carney told Radio-Canada last month the next Governor General would absolutely be fluently bilingual in English and French. Liberal MP Jonathan Wilkinson defended Simon, but said it's important for the next King's representative in Canada to speak French. Quote, I know there were some controversies with respect to French over the course of the past while, although I will say for Governor General Simon, she spoke an Indigenous language, which I think is fair game in Canada. But I think the next one, obviously, you want to make sure that folks in Quebec have comfort that Francophones are a part of the fabric of Canada. Governors General usually hold office for 5 years, but the term can last longer or can be cut short. David Johnston served for 7 years, while Judy Payette resigned during her third year in office following an independent workplace review that found she presided over a toxic environment at Rideau Hall. And I do believe that Ashley Burke, who wrote this article, perhaps played a key role in uncovering that story. or the stories or the details, or asking some key questions that led to her eventual departure. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau brought back an advisory committee on vice-regal appointments to recommend Simon's appointment after facing criticism for failing to use the committee during Payette's appointment. The Prime Minister's office had not responded to a question from CBC News about whether Carney used the advisory committee to make his recommendation. So we will be getting, I'm not sure that the new Governor General will be sworn in today, but at least we will find out who it is today. So that is some big news here. And once again, there are certain people who have been wondering whether or not Mark Carney's circle is a bit of a boys' club. Certainly, it seems to be becoming more of that around the cabinet table. But when it comes to appointing people to high-level positions, like a governor general, or, for example, the major projects office, or that type of stuff, Prime Minister Carney seems to have no reservations whatsoever in appointing highly qualified women and accomplished women. Still would be nice to see a few more in the inner circle, however. Actually, probably more than a few more, to be totally honest. Earlier in the day, as we mentioned as well, because we were talking about Indigenous peoples and the importance of Red Dress Day, Mark Carney will join members of the National Family Survivors Circle at a sacred bundle ceremony to, quote, commemorate the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and to us LGBTQI plus people. That is probably taking place right now, actually. And of course, he will be in the House of Commons this afternoon. It seems that the Bloc Québécois will be debating a motion for the calling for the House to condemn the imposition of new United States tariffs that came into force April 6th as contrary to the principles of free trade. If adopted, the motion will also urge the government, quote, to take all necessary measures without delay to mitigate the impact of additional tariffs on the full value of products containing steel, aluminium, copper, which is, quote, affecting a growing number of businesses, particularly small, medium enterprises, and, quote, will have irreparable effects on our manufacturing sector and the jobs that depend on it. One thing I wanted to make precise, kits and cows, because I was telling you about the additional tariffs on steel and aluminium, and I was remembering what I said, and there was a little lack of clarity on my part, which I take responsibility for. The new tariffs are not 25% tariffs on the entire value of the item, whether it contains any steel or aluminum, but to 25% additional on the steel and aluminum that's in the product, of course. Just wanted to be precise there. So, if you're buying something that has a little bit of aluminum in it, its entire price didn't go up 25%, just the price of the aluminum that's used in that product as well. Let's see. What else do we have here? Outside the chamber, the health committee members will continue a self-initiated investigation into the decision to pull the plug on the Prescribe IT, or Prescribe It, federally funded pilot program that was launched in 2017 to modernize the way doctors send prescriptions to pharmacies and to phase out older technology such as fax machines, and has reportedly racked up more than $300 million in development costs, with very few people apparently using it. Let's see, what else do we have? Public Safety Minister Gary Anandan-Sangri and Justice Minister Sean Fraser are booked in for a joint appearance at the Public Safety and National Security Committee as MPs begin going through the fine print of the proposed new lawful access regime outlined in legislation tabled by Anandan-Sangri in March, with senior officials from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, or CSIS, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, as well as the minister's respective departments, also expected to be at the table. That is, see if I can get a little bit of an, okay, that is weird. Okay, my computer is doing some very weird things today. So yes, the access law, I believe, is it's Bill C-22. And it's called the Lawful Access Act, which is designed to give police and intelligence agencies enhanced authorized access to digital information from electronic service providers. It requires telcos, telephone companies, and social media companies to build surveillance capabilities and aid investigations into other crimes, such as extortion, exploitation, threats to national security. Apparently, the one of the key features of the proposed bill is to streamline the legal process for authorities to obtain subscriber information, addressing rulings from Supreme Court cases R.V. Spencer and R.V. Bykovitz. It establishes a framework for requesting information from foreign-based social media and AI companies, encouraging cooperation with Canadian police. And it requires telecommunications service providers to maintain the capability to comply with lawful warrants, ensuring they can provide data when requested. The legislation is said to include some safeguards for solicitor client confidentiality and medical provider information, aiming to balance security with privacy. However, there are some concerns. There were some initial concerns, especially what was introduced, I believe, the first time as part of a larger crime bill, and I believe it has been taken out of that and being introduced as its own separate thing after it had some quite it had quite the big objections to it. There's things with regard to possibly searching mail as well in this. Michael Geist, who is a lawyer who often writes about such things, most on the anti regulation of internet position. So you need to take it with some of these comments with a grain of salt, knowing the very heavy bias. Regard to this, he says here, when the government introduced Bill C2 last year, which is the bill this was originally in, it buried the lawful access provisions at the end of an omnibus border security bill and said as little as possible about it. The strategy failed. The provisions were abandoned after widespread criticism, and the government spent months consulting stakeholders before trying again. Bill C-22, the Lawful Access Act, is the follow-up attempt. If the first day of House debate on the bill is any indication, the approach hasn't changed, as the government is once again hoping no one notices what's actually in the bill. The core concerns have been well documented by posts on access to subscriber information, mandatory metadata retention, international production orders, and systemic vulnerabilities. Bill C-22's metadata retention requirements would compel service providers to store data on all their users for up to a year, regardless of whether any user is suspected of anything. That is the architecture of a national surveillance database that would enable law enforcement to reach back in time and reconstruct the digital movements of virtually any Canadian with a connected device. That's the fear, right? The other thing, however, is if those records are not preserved, how do you go back in time to gain evidence to prosecute a case when there is sextortion? Therefore, these two rights need to be balanced. That's why we have organizations like the Canadian Civil Liberties Group, right? The Canadian Civil Liberties Association, I should say, to be able to bring these issues up, but in a good faith manner, and then put some citizen protections within the law, embed them within the law to make sure that they cannot be violated. So they're seeing this, and then basically you game that out. Okay, if we apply the laws this way, what are the things can happen? Okay, it will prevent this, that. Ooh, but look here. Ooh, there's something. There's an unforeseen consequence that we never intended. So let's put some guardrails there. You need to do that work. That's why committee work, for example, and all that research is very, very important, bringing in those witnesses, because they bring your attention to your blind spots and unintended negative consequences of bills when they are applied too broadly or whatnot, so that you can make the adjustments and add the nuance to the text of the bill that makes it such that it isn't broad, doesn't engage in overreach, and is likely to survive a constitutional challenge if someone brings it to court. So the fear is that it could be the architecture for a surveillance database, but on the other side, law enforcement is going to say, and victim rights groups are probably going to say, but yes, if you don't retain records, how do we ever get justice? That's why maybe it's records for up to 1 year and not forever, right? Maybe that's the timeline there is the mitigating factor. Meanwhile, the bill would also require providers to permanently embed surveillance capabilities into Canadian networks through secret ministerial orders, an approach the international experience has shown doesn't just threaten privacy, but actively makes communications infrastructure less secure for everyone. Both provisions raise serious constitutional questions, but neither received much attention on the floor of the House. On the second point, he brings up, I must plead complete and total ignorance. I do not have enough knowledge of that aspect of it to be able to make an informed comment. Justice Minister Sean Fraser spent most of his time on Part 1's subscriber information regime, which is the bill's biggest improvement over the earlier Bill C2. The troubling metadata retention provision in Part 2 received just one paragraph, as Fraser described it as focused on, quote, large-scale networks to understand, quote, what messages may have been sent at what time. Framing transmission data as a minor administrative matter rather than a comprehensive record of communications behavior is dangerously misleading. Indeed, Fraser did not mention that the European Court of Justice struck down the EU Data Retention Directive in 2014 precisely because blanket retention of all users' metadata is disproportionate interference with fundamental rights. Perhaps the government's charter statement on the bill issue, but it still hasn't been released. The surveillance architecture fared no better when Conservative MP asked Fraser directly whether the bill creates a backdoor into encrypted communications. Fraser said no, citing Governor and Council regulations, ministerial orders, and the Intelligence Commissioner's oversight as safeguards. This is a process answer, not a technical one. The concern is not simply about oversight and procedural safeguards, it is requiring providers to build and permanently maintain intercept infrastructure risks creating systemic vulnerabilities in Canadian communications networks. Those, those vulnerabilities do not disappear because there have been some approvals along the way. Pardon me, kids and cubs, I have to cough. I have stuck. There you go. Kit Linda has a good suggestion here as well about some mitigations here, or maybe records older than a specified amount of time go into an independent body that acts as a guardian. Also, yes, that could definitely be a solution there. So here, it's like, yes, process questions don't stop the bad thing from happening. Right? It's the bad thing happens and the process stuff gets dealt with before. So Mr. Geist here is saying that yes, while it might be great to have some great process stuff after the fact, it would be nice if it didn't happen. If we had more to prevent it from happening. The Bluck identified an interesting issue. The government is expanding the powers of intelligence and law enforcement agencies while simultaneously cutting the budget of the National Security and Intelligence Review Agency by 15%, eliminating roughly 8 positions, including lawyers, analysts, and investigators. NSIRA is the primary oversight body for intelligence activities in Canada and the main mechanism for retrospective review of how those powers are used. Cutting its capacity while creating new secret order issuing authority leaves a significant gap in accountability. So yes, there needs to be, if there is going to be secret order issuing authority, that has to be very, very, again, explicitly circumscribed in the law with very, very precise words and clear words. The Conservatives focused on the constitutional concerns, but the lawful access concerns run deeper. The constitutionality of the law is basic table stakes. So basically, it's the entry point lazy argument you can use if you don't care to do any research to go a little deeper. The opposition must also focus on what the law actually does, including the creation of a surveillance database covering virtually all Canadians and the risk of introducing systemic vulnerabilities that make everyone who uses a Canadian communications network less secure. Being tough on crime while preserving privacy and security are not competing objectives. 30 years of lawful access debate in Canada has produced one consistent pattern. The government of the day tables a bill, downplays the most invasive provisions, and hopes Canadians won't notice. Bill C2 broke that pattern briefly because the overreach was too obvious to ignore. Bill C22's concerns are different, but no less troubling. It's time to start paying attention. Christ. There is also maybe this is Marie Wolf from the Globe and Mail here, who writes, I believe she is from, yes, she is from the north. So this is not a guest opinion here. Canada's largest business association has warned the federal government its Lawful Access Bill risks weakening or breaking encryption and could introduce security vulnerabilities in digital systems. In a letter to Public Safety Minister Gary Anandansangri and Justice Minister Sean Fraser, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce says that as currently drafted, Bill C-22, quote, presents considerable risks to Canadian business, investment, and the integrity of data systems. The bill would require telecoms, internet companies, and other digital service providers to make changes to their systems to give surveillance and monitoring capabilities to police services and the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. The government has argued that Canada is dragging behind other G7 countries in not having a lawful access regime. It brought in Bill C-22 to introduce such a regime following calls from law enforcement and CSIS for more powers, including with identifying suspects' locations and their activity in the digital space. However, the letter from the Chamber of Commerce, which represents 200,000 businesses across Canada, including telecoms and tech giants, is concerned about the scope of the bill, saying, quote, to our knowledge, no comparable jurisdiction in the Western world has adopted lawful access provisions of this breadth. The United States, for instance, specifically excluded information systems from its lawful intercept law, the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, the letter says. Signed by David Pierce, the Chamber's Vice President, Government Relations, the letter says, quote, this divergence risks undermining Canada's attractiveness to foreign investment and raises concerns about the security and privacy of data stored and transmitted through digital systems in Canada. It says that the Chamber and its members recognize the importance of equipping law enforcement with the legal framework to address evolving threats. But the letter expresses concern that, as currently worded, the bill could be used, quote, to require companies to create a backdoor which would place encrypted systems at risk. It says Canada should embrace strong encrypt catalyze growth of the Canadian tech sector. Bill C-22, which is about to enter committee hearings in the House of Commons, is a refined version of a previous bill that was stopped in its tracks last year following concerted criticism from tech experts and civil liberties advocates about overreach. Previous federal have tried to bring in lawful access regimes but have failed because of opposition, including about threats to privacy. Experts are concerned that the current bill is being rushed through the Commons with only 3 sessions devoted to testimony from experts in committee. A motion was passed on Thursday by the Committee on Public Safety and National Security to dedicate 10 hours and 3 meetings to hearing witnesses, including the public safety and justice ministers. Simon Lafortune, a spokesperson for Mr. Anandansangri, said, quote, we look forward to Bill C-22 proceeding through the usual parliamentary process and being studied in committee where witnesses, including the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, will have the opportunity to provide their perspective to the committee in person or by written submission. He said a modern lawful access framework would give law enforcement agencies, quote, the legal tools they need to disrupt organized crime networks and protect Canadians. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce, whose members include Rogers, TELUS, BlackBerry, Microsoft, Meta, Apple, and Google, suggests the government make revisions to the bill, quote, to explicitly protect encrypted networks. It says that requiring access to digital systems could introduce systemic vulnerabilities that could expose private and public sector systems to, quote, unacceptable cybersecurity risks. Ruby Sahota, Secretary of State for Combating Crime, has been arguing vociferously for the bill. During a Commons debate last month, she said she thought law enforcement would want even broader powers than Bill C-32 would usher, in saying, quote, that is something we can work on with this as a first step. But law enforcement always wants broader powers. At some point, you got to tell them, now you've got enough. We need to get this passed in order to take those other steps in the future. I would be open to going further in the future as well, she said. Tech experts have warned that the changes proposed in Bill C-22 could allow hackers to exploit architecture inserted into electronic systems, including those belonging to internet and telecom companies. They have warned that the requirement for quote, core providers to be later defined through regulations to retain metadata for up to a year could prove a new and valuable target for hackers. The metadata would not include emails, web browsing history, social media activity, or text messages, but it could include information about which telephone numbers have been in touch with each other and data allowing someone's location to be pinpointed. The Chamber of Commerce suggests a series of amendments to the bills, including restricting the long-term retention of metadata. It recommends using targeted time-limited preservation orders for metadata to reduce security risks. So that's where the debate is standing on that. I have to admit that I understand certain aspects of it, but not all of it. Some of that is a little over my head and out of my field of expertise. So the value added I can give you as commentary and analysis is somewhat limited on this file, but I will do my best as this goes through committee and maintain keep on top of it to keep on giving you information because when it comes to matters of this, we are constitutionally protected against unreasonable search and seizure. So we have to make sure that these laws are nimble and broad enough that people who are engaging in crimes of extortion and sextortion and all that kind of stuff, online fraud and all these type of things, revenge porn, can be found, and the activity can be possible at the same time. Right? You don't want them to be so broad that anybody can see anything, right? And for the more dubious reasons, or that they're in the case, like similarly to the case of the convoy, when the RCMP were granted the authority to go to banks and say, with this we need the banking information from this particular person, without there being some other body there that the police can bring that information to, who would adjudicate whether or not this is a proper use of this expanded authority, right? The police simply go into the bank saying, we need information on this person based on our say so alone, give it to us, is not good enough. Right? There needs to be somebody in the middle to actually say, well, is it actually good enough? And make sure that it is. So that's one of the reasons that particular aspect was deemed unconstitutional when it went to court. It's not that seizing bank accounts was unconstitutional. That happens every time. It's not like, garnishing wages or stuff like that is illegal. That happens as well. It was strictly the fact that um, the way that it was implemented, nobody was watching the watchers. Nobody was policing the police. There was no mechanism to police the police if it needed to be, which means that was ripe for overreach, and you don't want that. So this would probably be something relatively similar here, in that you do not want the overreach, and you definitely want somebody there that's making sure that if we're saying, hey, we need to uh, open this person's mail, or we need to search this person's cell phone, or we need to go back into their browser history, that someone else, others said, yeah, okay, not just on your say so, but yes, your say so, and there is actually something behind it, this is legitimate. Or, yeah, sorry, Annie, you want this, but you do not have enough there to actually get that. So no, go back, do your work, come back with more if you can. But at the present moment, no. There needs to be that instance there for everyone on both sides to feel that the system is being well constructed. And so hopefully, when they are discussing this in committee, there'll be lots of discussion about this, and hopefully, lots of very useful amendments will come out of the process. All right, let's keep going. Let's see how we're doing for time here, kids and cubs. Okay, I'm doing pretty well today. Back to other things that might be going on today around the house. Uh, Energy and Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson will share his and his government's perspective on energy security during a fireside chat with the International Energy Agency Executive Director Faith Birol at an event hosted by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce around 6:30 this evening. And Minister Hodgson also had an announcement or a little bit of news for us yesterday with regard to another project that would be starting soon. Um, it says here, um, okay, there's an article probably in the Logic here, based on from what I'm seeing. But Minister Hodgson said, we promised we would get big Canadian things done. And now we're building the first battery grade cobalt refinery in North America right here in Ontario, a facility that will give the automotive sector sovereign access to essential battery materials. Excited to see a $20 million investment from our government announced by my colleague, MP Pauline Rochefort, who, where does she represent? It would be very interesting to see what writing she does represent, who she speaks for here. Nipissing Timiskaming, Ontario, of course, Northern Ontario. That would make sense in this particular case. So yeah, um, So yes, excited to see a $20 million investment from our government announced by my colleague, Pauline Rochefort, today to bring this project to life and secure 160 plus jobs. This is what building for the future looks like, says Mr. Hodgson. So let's see here if there's any additional news about it. I'm going to go to the logic to see if it is indeed there. Can't see that, but I do see CTV. So let's bring that up for you. This is courtesy of Darren McDonald. The federal government said Friday it is willing to provide the remaining $20 million needed to bring Electra Battery Materials Corp's cobalt refinery into production. Okay, so it was all financed except for that last little bit, and the federal government just said, okay, let's just push this over the line. The funding will help ensure North America's first battery-grade cobalt refinery will begin operations, enabling domestic production of up to 1 million electric vehicles annually. The letter of intent, or LOI, for the funding was agreed to in late January. While not yet a binding agreement, the LOI means means the federal government wants to negotiate with Electra to sign a deal to provide the funding. Sorry for that mistake, Kits and Cubs. In the article, the word funding was directly under federal, and I went down one line mid-sentence. Quote, we are grateful to be working with the Government of Canada. Today's announcement underscores their commitment to advancing North American energy security and critical mineral independence, Electra CEO Trent Mell said in a news release. Pardon me, Kits and Cubs, I have to cough again. Oh, my word. Thank you for your patience there. Back to the article. I'll go back and read the quote. We are grateful to be working with the Government of Canada. Today's announcement underscores their commitment to advancing North American energy security and critical mineral independence, Electra CEO Trent Mell said in a news release. Electra's refining complex is a cornerstone in this collective effort, providing a strategically unique solution to strengthen and diversify the region's critical minerals supply chain. Mell said Electra's facility will reduce global reliance on China, where 94% of the world's cobalt is currently refined. Quote, we are fostering a more resilient, sustainable, and self-reliant future for North America, he said. Quote, LG Energy Solution of South Korea will purchase up to 80% of our future production, and buyer interest for the remainder far exceeds our capacity. Last year, the U.S. Pentagon announced $20 million in financing for Electra. Friday's announcement of a letter of intent with the federal government means the company is closer to having the $80 million needed to complete construction. Electra said it intends to complete discussions with the federal government as soon as possible so it can move ahead with the project. Anita Anand, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, said the goal is to make Canada a leader in critical minerals processing, manufacturing, and recycling. Quote, critical minerals are essential to power a low-carbon economy, Anand said in the release. I am interested in seeing how this develops, as Electra's proposal may positively impact Canada's critical minerals processing. Nickel Belt MP said, there is an error there in the article. Nickel Belt MP Marc G. Serré said, okay, this is terrible writing. Let's try that again. I have to reorder the sentence. Nickel Belt MP Marc Serré, who is also parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, said Canada will play a critical role in the government in the global energy transition. Oh boy. Quote, as the demand for critical minerals increases, along with the clean energy and technologies they enable, our high environmental social governance standards and the expertise of our workforce will be critical advantages in the low-carbon economy of the future, Serré said in the release. Electra's project will provide Canada with high-quality critical mineral input that will contribute to the net zero economy and strengthen our mining industry. While discussions between the parties are ongoing, there's no guarantee or assurance that the final agreements will be reached and or funding will be provided to the company. The refinery project is located in the town of Temiskaming Shores and is projected to have the lowest carbon footprint of any refinery of its kind in the world. There again, the green element embedded into the project, not being pumped up with big fanfare, but it's there. It's always there. It's always present. Once fully commissioned, the facility will produce 6,500 tons of cobalt per year, which would support the production of up to 1 million EVs annually. In addition to cobalt refining, Electra plans to produce other battery materials that will strengthen the resiliency of the North American supply chain. Electra recently commenced a feasibility level engineering study to build a battery recycling refinery adjacent. Electra recently commenced a feasibility level engineering study to build a battery recycling refinery. I am having trouble with this sentence. Take 4. Electra recently commenced a feasibility level engineering study to build a battery recycling refinery adjacent to its cobalt refinery. Say that 3 times fast. The company is also contemplating a second cobalt sulfate facility in Bécancour, Quebec, and a strategically located North American nickel sulfate plant. Our Temiskaming Shores refinery complex is the first step in Electra's vision, Mel said. We are building the right assets at the right time and are extremely well positioned to leverage the refinery complex to grow along with the EV and battery markets. So there you go, kids and cubs. That's how that's advanced. And I am going to set that article aside so that my Beaver sweetie can see it, because if they are interested in battery recycling, I just happen to know a guy. Okay, the sun has gone away from the roof, so now I am very red, and now we probably do need a little bit of light. So I will bring that up. There we go. That's a little bit closer to my natural color. There you go. Oh, man. So, yeah, lots of stuff, again, going on here at Kits and Cubs. Um, Kitavi G says here, a major weakness in the development of Northern Ontario is the highway infrastructure. Yes, we keep on hearing about that being repeated over and over again. You are absolutely right there, Tavi G. That's for sure. Also says, that's great news for the area. I don't think current highway infrastructure will be able to handle it. But indeed. Let's see, what else do we have here from the Kits and Cubs? Kid Bucky saying here, I think PMCC style is the biggest contrast to PMJT rather than stated priorities. It is definitely a contrast in style. Definitely. And the one that was needed for the times and the shift as well. All right. Let's see. What else do we have, Kits and Cubs, going on? Like I said, there's lots of activity today going on the Hill and around. Let's see here. All right. If you're from Alberta, the Canadian Health Coalition and Friends of Medicare in Alberta will release a new legal opinion about the Alberta government's plan to allow doctors to decide patient by patient whether they bill the government or patients privately for medically necessary publicly insured services, which they contend allows physicians to ration care based on ability to pay, ushering a U.S.-style healthcare system. Yeah, not great. Let's see what we have here. A coalition of self-described concerned parents and medical professionals, legal experts, and those with lived experiences in the harms of gender ideology. Oh boy. Yeah, they're going to come and spew more BS at around 11 a.m. So we don't need to pay them much attention. Well, I mean, we have to pay them attention because they're going to show up and do stuff, but we do not need to give them any more platform than that. And let's see here. There will be a Bloc-initiated supply debate today after question period to vote on the final batch of proposed amendments to Defense Minister David McGuinty's proposal to overhaul the military justice system. As we mentioned yesterday, that's still moving ahead, which is now tentatively on track to proceed to third reading as early as later this week after the Liberals successfully deployed their newly secured majority numbers to wrap up report stage debate on the bill yesterday afternoon. Boy, lots of stuff going on here today, and those are the main sort of overall bigger activities, Kits and Cubs. One of the big pieces of news yesterday is that the group within Alberta, the Alberta Alpha Centurion, Perfidy, Proud, whatever else you're throwing into that movement, apparently it claims that it has over 300,000 signatures, and which means that they have enough for their referendum question to be included on the ballot. Um, of course, at the moment, we have to take them at their word at that, and we have reason to believe, as reported on yesterday's show, that let's put it this way: we're not quite able to be sure whether those alleged signatures are legitimate because, well, there was a list of voters that was supplied to political parties, and there are very, very, very strict conditions and rules, and those were violated. And basically, the very, very private information of 3 million Albertans has a lot of people who shouldn't have had access to it definitely do, and that is not a good thing. That is not a good thing at all. Uh, so, um, a lot of there's some video going around. Uh, Thomas Lukasik cited a video posted by an account. It goes by Millie23, and Millie says David Parker tells Tamara, who, by the way, is asking people to send her money again. It's like, what, did she already blow through the cash in the bank account, or apparently she needs more money for legal stuff? Apparently. David Parker tells Tamara that she is an ambassador for Centurion election voters breach fiasco. He tells her she has her own unique link so that they will know who is being recruited by her. Thomas Lukasik, with regard to that, it says, if you wonder how the Separatists collected their petition signatures using the illegally leaked voters list, here's David Parker and Tamara Rich explaining how. So, kids and cubs, unfortunately, I'm going to have to expose you to a minute and 10 of a conversation that includes La Tamara and Ma Parker. But you need, this is stuff that you probably need to hear, because the Centurion kind of people, whatever, are denying up and down and all around that they did anything wrong, and the Alberta Republicans are denying up and down and all around that they did anything wrong. But if you happen to listen to their private, what they thought, I guess I don't know if they thought this was private conversation, because I don't know how this got out. But if you happen to listen to them speak to each other when they are planning, the story doesn't hold up.
Simple. It's literally like a phone book. You search
it literally is, and I can tell the audience that literally I went to the site, I signed up, and it's literally a matter of picking a community and then searching for names, and they just pop up, and you claim.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Have we given the website?
Yeah. So the website is thecenturionproject.epp.
Right.
But your own link, Tamara, if you wanted to share that one that people could sign up for, that then they'll be signing up through you. Now, people.
Okay.
Right. So if you click on ambassador, then you have your own link that you can share. And then the only reason that we give people unique links is we want to know which users are being recruited by who, so that, and this is important, people have said, oh, it's a multi-level marketing scheme. Well, only in so much as this, you invite more people to join it, but you don't own the people that anybody else claims. They're not under you. You can't even see them. For example, I can't see who Tamara's claimed.
Right.
I can only see who's been surveyed but I want this to be.
So yeah, it seems they put a lot of thought into this. One of the things they didn't put any thought into, however, was the issue of people who live in rural areas who, on their IDs, have their PO box address rather than their actual address. They had a little difficulty signing up. Once again, the people who were doing this did not do the pre-diligence work, weren't thorough, meticulous enough to first survey their core constituency to figure out whether or not they had valid ID to sign the petitions. So if people are wondering if some of the signatures have been forged, one of the reasons maybe leading to that question was the fact, well, if it has so much support in rural areas and so many rural voters have PO boxes and their actual IDs have their PO box address rather than their home address, and that is not considered a valid ID. And all of a sudden they realized, ooh, wait a minute, the number of the pool of people we can sign up is a little smaller because they don't have valid ID, and we didn't check first, and we didn't wait a couple of months to tell people to go get valid ID and all that kind of stuff. Or maybe, ask Danielle to change the rules. Well, that certainly provides more motivation to add some signatures. Oh, well, they would have signed had they had valid ID. Trust us. So apparently, the sloppiness that went into the manner in which they managed the list also went into the decision to actually engage in this process in the first place. But they think they can run a country. Okay. So that happened, and there is a little bit more on this. With regard to that, there's someone that asked Mr. Lukasik, thank you for all your work. Question for you. Potentially our names may have been used fraudulently by a separatist party. Is there any way for me to find out if my name was used illegally? Danielle Smith would never tell us. She's too scandalous. And he says, this is speculation as there's no available evidence to suggest that, but a reasonable speculation. No, Elections Alberta is not allowed to release whose name appears on petitions. I trust that Elections Alberta will be diligent in validating the petition. Of course, if Elections Alberta determines that maybe not all the names are valid and all that kind of stuff, again, I am pretty sure that the Separatists will be able to rely on Danielle and Mickey Amery to find a way to retroactively make them valid. They just love changing laws and rules in the middle of the game. Yeah. Oh boy. This is pretty bad stuff. So yeah, the signatures have been handed in. We have groups now trying to spin stuff, and people trying to spin stuff. Like we have Mr. Parker stating that take a break from the infighting and realize what has just been accomplished. Over 750,000 people in Alberta have called for a referendum on independence. Yes, Tommy Boy's petition called for a referendum. That is 25% of all eligible Albertan voters calling for a referendum. Oh my God, look at this. There's so much demand for a referendum that 750,000 people signed. Yeah. Let's take the good work that all the people from Forever Canadian did, and let's add that to our numbers and then claim that there's definitely legitimacy for a referendum. And while we're doing that, let's just conveniently forget to say that the reason for which the majority of that 750,000 signatures have been collected were people in response, pre-response to your initiative to put a question on the ballot that would be divisive to instead replace it with a question that would be uniting. The people who put the question ballot, who asked for the question to be put on the ballot that would be more uniting, didn't want a referendum on independence until you guys showed up and started seemed to and things then started to kind of pop up, coincidences, so many that at some point people figured that they weren't coincidences anymore, about some closeness between this movement and a government that's seemingly very, very eager and willing to bend over backwards to accommodate it. But we're just going to count those 400,000 plus, about 438,000 signatures as people demanding that a referendum be held in the first place, rather than people saying, well, frick, if we're going to have one because these yahoos won't stop until they do, well, at least let's make it one that we can rally around. Can you imagine the unmitigated gall of this man appropriating the work, stealing the work if everybody who opposes him and then rolling it into his own work to claim that there is legitimacy and high public demand for a referendum on independence, right? A referendum on independence in general. And since 750,000 people have already expressed their desire to have a referendum on independence, why not why not make it our question, the one that had the least support? Because the number of signatures that they claim to have collected, because we're always going to have to say allegedly claimed because of this. Oh, it's such a mess. And the other thing as well is that David Parker is lying because Mr. Lukasik specifically said that he preferred for there to be the when he filed in the form, said, do you want us to proceed through a referendum or through a vote in the legislature? And if it doesn't proceed through a vote in the legislature, then it goes to a referendum, right? He ticked the box for a vote in the legislature so that it would be clear to Albertans where their MLA stood on the issue. The referendum was a backstop or a failsafe. If the first one didn't happen, then we go to the second one. But his push was not to start a referendum at first. Right? So Mr. Parker tends to mix stuff up. There's other people that are posting stuff saying, we've validated the signatures or something. We've validated the signatures we've collected. We've got enough. Which of course, again, makes me laugh. They keep on wanting to present this as being done and inevitable. Right? And it's like, you can't verify your own signatures. That's just silly. The tweet goes, yep, we verified our signatures, and for every signature, there are 2 to 3 votes you can't see. We had to turn away a huge amount of people due to having only a P.O. box on their license, most rural Alberta, plus the huge amount of people who were afraid of the government and violent lefties. We'll see in October what's up. Okay, 1, we verified our signatures. We verified our signatures as utterly and legally irrelevant. It is meaningless. And considering everything that's going on, please don't tell me you seriously expect us to take you on your honor, especially when you enter the room claiming that you have verified your own signatures. Like that's a thing. Immediately, you're telling me I can't trust you 2, for every signature, there are 2 or 3 votes you can't see. You can't see them because you have absolutely no verifiable facts to back up that ratio. You are stating something you wish to be true as a fact in order to make it inevitable. There is no data. There's no data to say that for every signature there are 2 to 3 votes you can't see. You just made that up. We had to turn away a huge amount of people due to having only a PO box on their license. Yeah. Sucks to be you that you didn't plan. Not our problem. Plus the huge amount of people who were afraid of the government and violent lefties. I'll take things that never happened for $2,000. That's the obligatory, ominous, you're being persecuted, everybody's coming to get you. Fear. The statement. There's nobody that refused to sign that petition because they were afraid of what the government of Alberta would do to them. And of those rampant, violent lefties that mass populate rural Alberta. Girl. Come on. Let's cut the bullshit. Jeez. The inevitability, the PR exercise around the inevitability of this whole thing was cited by Mr. David Clemenhaga, for whom we have a lot of respect, of course. And he has a couple of opinions with regard to all of this that are quite interesting. The first one, let's see, maybe the inevitability was something different from what I was looking for here. Hold on, let me just take a look to make sure I've got the right thing, because I could be misremembering something. There we go. There's the find. And the word that I am looking inevitable. Oh, there we go. It was right before me. There we go. So yes. It says here, it may have been, hold on. I think I've got something wrong here. Oh, I'm not linking to the right spot. Okay. That makes sense. All right, hold on. Let me look at, get the right link here. I'll start with the other one instead. David Clemenhaga says the poor line list of electors imbroglio moves to the next stage, the search for a fall guy. His pro-separation Centurion project having essentially doxed the entire adult population of Alberta, it would seem some of David Parker's political allies don't want to be associated with him just now. Quote, neither Stay Free Alberta or the Alberta Prosperity Society are affiliated with the Centurion Project or David Parker, the ubiquitous separatist Jeffrey Rath said on social media yesterday. And absolutely take my word for it, we have no association whatsoever. After all, I'm a member of the bar. Oh yeah, I'm also in trouble with my law society. Oops. Shh. But yes, Jeffrey Rath said on social media yesterday, quote, neither SFA or APS have had access to any lists in the possession of either the Alberta Republican Party or David Parker or the Centurion Project. And I'm sure Mr. Rath then proceeded to show proof of that. Mr. Parker's former wedding guest, Danielle Smith, has apparently never even heard of the guy. Quote, we are aware of the situation involving a potential data breach of electors' personal information, Alberta Premier said on the same social media platform. Quote, protecting the personal information of Albertans is of the utmost importance, and those responsible should be held accountable under the law, Ms. Smith continued piously. We understand both Elections Alberta and the RCMP are looking into this matter thoroughly, and we will wait for the results of those investigations before commenting further and assessing whether any future legislative changes need to be considered. What kind of legislative changes, Danielle? Legislative changes that would permit this to happen? Maybe applied retroactively? Doug Ford just did it in Ontario, right? And you're not adverse to going back in time and changing laws, are you? Those are kinds of legislative changes. And future legislative changes. Okay. This sure sounds to me like the Premier is getting ready to throw someone under the bus. As for the Separatist Republican Party of Alberta, whence came the copy of the list of electors used by the Centurion Project to create an online database according to Elections Alberta, all leaders Cameron Davies seem to have had to say about the imbroglio is that it rescinded access to its copy of the list of electors to contractors doing party business when it learned of the Centurion Project's activities. Quote, now I recognize that this may be an unpopular opinion, but I think Mr. Parker has done all Albertans a huge favor by exposing the inexcusably sloppy way the government of Alberta has protected confidential personal data about nearly 3 million of us. Likewise, what may turn out to be the largest data breach in Canadian history has revolved the incredible irresponsibility of Miss Smith's United Conservative Party, which seems to have paid no attention at all to the election's Alberta data security, while focusing instead on ensuring that a separatist referendum question proposed by someone else makes it onto a ballot this fall. The breach also exposes the amateur's conduct of Elections Alberta, albeit after being defamed by the UCP and the party's efforts to make things easy for Miss Smith's separatist allies. And I have a hypothesis as to the reason for which Danielle Smith really wants this question on the ballot. And it makes me think of what happened in the United States, and particularly, I think it was in California. Remember the day when they had Proposition 8, that super anti-rainbow bill, and people were taking pictures of themselves in a white T-shirt with NOH8, printed on their face or something. No hate. I believe that these types of questions were added to the election in order to drum out support, because there was more support for those initiatives than there was for the Republican president at the time. And they were hoping that if they could appeal to people's hate of gay people and get them to come out to vote against that while they were there, they might also vote at the same time for the president. And I think that this is what's going on with Danielle Smith. She has some other referendum questions that she wants to present on the 19th, some that are very, 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 very important to her. And I'm sure she wants to make sure that enough people from rural Alberta come out to vote to support them. So therefore, why not throw in a little vote frothing referendum on separation from the people that are the most committed to wanting to break up the country, and therefore most likely to vote for every single one of Danielle Smith's other Ottawa is everything that's wrong in your life is Ottawa, and we're going to fix it referendum questions in order to have the turnout required for her to claim that she has legitimacy. I believe that's the real reason that she's trying to get that. She does. She might not care about them in that movement, but she is using them like crazy. Interesting. Notwithstanding stating in a news release that it found out about the Centurion Project's use of the list of electors only last Monday, it turns out Elections Alberta was told about it by a Conservative commentator, Jen Gerson, at the end of March. The public record deserves to be corrected here, Ms. Gerson told independent journalist Jeremy Apple in a video cast published Friday. Quote, they chose to lie by omission by not including the fact that they had received a complaint a month earlier. Or as she put it, in the lead of the right-wing Substack she contributes to, quote, Elections Alberta had reasonable grounds to know that separatists had access to the province's voter file at least a month ago. And as far as I can tell, they did sweet fuck all about it. And then she's been posting other things because she's been writing it after. And she goes, I want them to know it was me. Woo. Mr. Apple broke the story on Wednesday night after he showed up at a Centurion Project meeting in Edmonton at the same time as an Elections Alberta official and several police officers arrived with a letter saying the group was under investigation for improperly accessing the province's list of electors. Since it is not a registered political party, the Centurion Project cannot legally hold the data on the list of electors. But in Alberta, any political party can, even if it has no seats in the legislature or any prospect of ever holding any. Chances are, therefore, that other copies of the list are also in the wind. For its part, Elections Alberta pleads innocence on grounds of necessity, insisting in its quote message to Albertans Friday that its reluctance to investigate Miss Gerson's trip was the government's fault because of legislation passed in May last year. Quote, the legislation requires that we must have reasonable grounds to believe an offense has occurred to start investigations. The Elections Alberta statement complained, reasonable grounds is a much higher standard than grounds to warrant, the previous standard in the legislation, or what might be seen as obvious based on complainants' suspicions or beliefs. And those changes to the legislation came courtesy of the current Justice Minister, Mickey Amy and Danielle Smith. They did the preparatory work. Opposition NDP leader Naheed Nenshi has called for the Chief Electoral Officer Gordon McClure to be summoned to testify before an emergency meeting of the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices. Quote, the UCP government must reverse Bill 54's provisions that came into effect in 2025 and weakened Elections Alberta's investigative powers. He said, everyone should understand that the UCP is unlikely to allow any of this to happen. And this, of course, was a further reduction of powers after there was a reduction of powers following electoral bodies and police organizations deciding to investigate how Jason Kenney became the leader of the UCP. This is still a developing story, of course, but if history is a guide, most of the effort expected by official bodies from now on will be to find a fall guy to take the blame and ensure that no consequences stick to them. Meanwhile, it's starting to sink in that the serious consequences of the purloined list of electors being scraped by artificial intelligence go beyond the personal and financial safety issues identified on Friday when the story first broke. Quote, separatists have been gathering signatures, observed Mount Royal University political science Dwayne Bratt in an interview posted to social media yesterday. Quote, did they actually acquire the signatures or did they just use this to identify people as signatures and they had other people sign it off on them? So that's one possibility, and I think it's hugely problematic. That question is sure to be asked again tomorrow when the Stay Free Alberta petition calling for an unconstitutional separation referendum question on the ballot is brought to Elections Alberta for verification. That's now going to require a heck of a lot of phone calls to do right. Jeez. It just keeps on getting greasier and greasier, doesn't it, kids and cubs? Jeez. Very wild. Let's try here. And then there was another article. By Jen Gerson. She followed it up. Sorry, I'd forgotten her name for a second there. And this one, it's worth reading because there's the first one, and you sort of get your initial response, and we saw what we had here from all around. Prime Minister specifically trying not to get too involved, didn't say too much about it. I'll get to the quote for you here from the Prime Minister. A lot of people sort of criticized it as, I guess, weak, but I'm not sure what it is that too much what the Prime Minister would be able to say with regard to this, and certainly not much he could do at this particular moment, because I mean it truly is strictly a provincial body. So you don't want to overstep your boundaries and jurisdictions as well, right? Wow, I cannot seem to find the quote. There we go. According to the Canadian press, There was the city councillor, of course, that we mentioned, that was trying to help someone who was facing internet partner violence relocate with her children after her address was leaked. The counselor says that he's also hearing from others whose safety and lives have been affected after the group called the Centurion Project publicly distributed a list naming nearly 3 million electors in Alberta and their addresses. Elections Alberta is probing the matter. Quote, I feel deep, deep concern and anger, said Aaron Paquette, who represents the Dene ward in Edmonton's Northeast in a Sunday phone interview. Quote, there are so many other people whose stories match this woman's, and people need to know that they're not alone, and other people who are not experiencing this need to know how devastating it is. He said his office has advised the woman to contact police. She had to figure out how to break her lease agreement and find a new accommodation over the weekend, the counselor said. Quote, can you imagine the stress that this woman's going through, he asked. As a parent, I feel extremely emotional about this. Prime Minister Mark Carney called the alleged privacy breach deeply concerning in a weekend statement. Quote, I expect Elections Alberta and the RCMP to work thoroughly and expeditiously to assess the causes and to pursue appropriate actions against those responsible, he said. We must be constantly vigilant to protect the rights of Canadians and the integrity of our democratic processes. That's about all he can say on this without going over the line. Yeah, this is like I said, really not good stuff on the part of and like I said, probably one of the biggest violations and breaches that there has been. And sadly, as we mentioned, the consequences for this type of breach are ridiculously low. A maximum of 1 year in jail, or I think it is a $10,000 fine. Hardly a disincentive, especially considering the stakes. So Jen Gerson then wrote a follow-up. The title, Danielle Smith should use Alberta's data breach to put an end to secession talk. Elections Alberta could have known more than a month ago that there was a violation of the province's voter file exposing the personal data of 2.9 million electors in the province to unknown numbers of bad actors. They could have known because I warned them, or rather, I tried to. I reported in an anonymous tip I got from an investigator. Elections Alberta blew me off 10 days later, stating that while they found my evidence compelling, they said it didn't amount to reasonable grounds to investigate. Almost a month passed before Elections Alberta received credible information it then chose to investigate. When they put their minds to it, they seemed to quickly realize that I was right. Oops. Anyway, Elections Alberta is now blaming their failure to fully investigate my March 31st tip on the provincial government. They claim that changes made last year with Bill 54 had effectively defanged their capacity to look into complaints. Meanwhile, the government is claiming that's tosh, saying the new rules gave Elections Alberta the license it needed to look into the tip. Well, of course, the people that changed the rules that make it such that Elections Canada had less investigative power, when that comes to light, that their lack of investigative power has led to something like this happening or not being able to be stopped before, that the people who did that would say that that claim was tosh. Just saying. In short, Elections Alberta is blaming the government is blaming Elections Alberta, and the Separatists are now in open war with one another on social media. Fight, 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 fight. The only people they hate more than us is each other. So now we have reached the part of our program where they pull each other's hair out and they try to gouge each other's eyes out. Anybody want some popcorn? Oh my God. Friday truly was a spectacular day in Alberta politics, and I've seen a few. That data is now in the wild, and there's no reasonable prospect of it being rehomed. So what's to be done now? Firstly, in order for Elections Canada to operate as an independent agency, it needs to be able to operate as an independent agency. If the current legislation doesn't provide a clear standard for allowing an investigation, then the legislation needs to be changed. The Alberta legislature is in session. The reasonable grounds provision can be changed this week. Do it now. Secondly, we require real accountability of a variety that has become vanishingly rare in this country. If Elections Alberta officials acted wrongly or misinterpreted their legal guidelines, someone needs to get fired. The public needs to see real consequences in order to restore trust in the institution. Thirdly, this is an incredible opportunity for Premier Danielle Smith to put a destructive and divisive secession question to rest, at least for the time being. The Premier of Alberta claims to be a federalist. She wants a sovereign Alberta and a united Canada, whatever that means. She told rooms filled with angry and aggrieved people that she wants to have the chance to prove that Canada can work for them. But then Miss Smith says a lot of things to a lot of people. The proof of her convictions lies not in her words, but rather in her actions. This has been one of the largest privacy breaches in the province's history. People are scared and angry, palpably so. The inappropriate leak of the electors list calls into questions the verifiability of the Just Cause petition process that is trying to force a secession referendum on the province. Meanwhile, the Independent Elections Authority has lost the trust of Albertans to run a credible referendum. Whether they lost this trust as a result of poor legislation or poor execution is a moot point. Lastly, the data breach has finally undermined trust in the good faith and competence of the separatists themselves, and this seems to be true even among their own fellow separatists. If Miss Smith is a federalist as opposed to someone who simply claims to be in order to maintain respectability, then she will see the scandal as a political gift. She'll say there has to be real consequences for putting Albertans' safety and privacy at risk. She'll say that a secession referendum can't possibly accrue any democratic legitimacy under the current conditions. She'll tell the separatists in her caucus and in her party that if they want to put a secession vote on the agenda, they'll need to go about it the same way that the Parti Québécois did, by starting an explicitly separatist party, standing candidates for office, and securing a true democratic mandate to hold a vote. And if she's a federalist, she'll take this gift quickly while the anti-separatist sentiment is at a peak. If she doesn't, well, then we have here is a woman who is willing to put her personal ambitions and her party ahead of the safeguarding of the nation, and the rest of Canada ought to know how to regard her. Certainly those of us who are installing extra security cameras and locks on our doors thanks to this mess won't fail to miss the cue. Calls are coming from inside the house. I love it. Love it. There's another point of view. Very good statement. From Jared Wesley. Is there any note here? Here? Okay, he doesn't, there's not on the Substack, no note about who Jared Wesley is, so I will give it to you here. Jared Wesley is a professor of political science and the associate dean of graduate studies in the Faculty of Arts at the University of Alberta. So somebody who has a little bit of an idea what he's talking about here. And props to Mr. Ken Bosencool for having brought this to our attention. All right. The alleged misuse and online exposure of millions of Albertans' personal information spans well beyond normal politics or campaign trickery. They go to the heart of our privacy as individuals and the foundations of our democracy. Multiple investigations are underway. The RCMP will take years to investigate possible crimes. Elections Alberta, itself a player in this story, can only act within the increasingly narrow limits of its mandate and capacity. A legislative committee would turn this into a political theater. But, not unlike the corrupt care scandal, none of these separate investigations can provide Albertans the whole story in a timely and public fashion. Only a full public inquiry can do that, and Albertans deserve one before they cast another ballot. Elections Alberta believes the Republican Party of Alberta's copy of the list was given to the Centurion Project, a pro-separation group led by David Parker, leader of Take Back Alberta. A judge ordered Centurion to remove from the internet a searchable database containing the names and home addresses of close to 3 million provincial voters. Despite Parker's disingenuous claim to the contrary, that database was not as harmless as a phone book. It listed names and home addresses of nearly every eligible voter. This includes prominent politicians, election officials, senators, judges, crown prosecutors, journalists, and other public figures. So when we're talking about intimate partner violence, we're also talking about anybody that has one of these irrational grudges against any politician or some type of journalist or a prosecutor, because it seems that nowadays some people decide to have them tailed or surveilled. This puts all of them at risk as well. It also lists other folks who have good reasons to not have their personal information broadcast to the world: parents of adopted or foster children, healthcare workers involved in providing abortions or gender-affirming care, teachers and school administrators, researchers, activists, public servants, members of marginalized communities, people escaping stalkers or abusive family members. All are more vulnerable today than they were before this list was leaked. This is not to mention ordinary Albertans who simply do not want their home address turned over to political organizers, or the millions who are now at risk of identity theft or fraud, particularly when the list falls into the hands of criminal elements. One this presupposes that it hasn't already. And this presupposes that the first hands into which that list fell did not contain criminal elements. Interestingly enough, there's an RCMP investigation into that now. My. It also exposes anyone with whom a custodian of the list has an axe to grind. This raises the prospect of political intimidation, threats of violence, or worse. Multiple investigations may be underway, but none will be necessarily tell the full story. We may get a lot of details and still lose the forest for the trees. Police investigations are too narrow and take years. They ask whether specific individuals committed specific offenses that can be proven to a criminal standard, i.e., beyond a reasonable doubt. But a criminal investigation will not answer the broader democratic questions. How did the list move from an authorized recipient to unauthorized hands? Who accessed it? Who copied it? Who used it? Was it used to support petition, referendum, party building, separatist, or electoral activity? What legislative choices made this possible? What institutional safeguards failed? What reforms are required before Albertans vote again? An RCMP investigation into fraud may be necessary. It is not sufficient. Privacy investigations are also limited. Alberta's Privacy Commissioner has already identified a major gap. Alberta's Personal Information Protection Act does not apply to political parties. Oh, gee, what a surprise. How convenient. The Commissioner has said that this leaves her office without jurisdiction over personal information from the list of electors if it was disclosed by a political party, and she has renewed her call for Alberta to bring political parties under the privacy law. Elections Alberta's investigation is essential, but it too is constrained. The chief electoral officer has said the agency is working, quote, within the limits of the legislation. He has also explained that Elections Alberta cannot simply investigate whatever looks suspicious. It now needs, quote, reasonable grounds to believe an offense has occurred before starting an investigation, a much higher threshold than the previous, quote, grounds to warrant standard, and in the CEO's own comparison, similar to the level of evidence police would need to make an arrest. That is a remarkable admission. The province's election agency is telling Albertans it may not have the legal tools it needs to investigate threats to the integrity of our election system. That, combined with their resource constraints and the fact that several referendums are looming, suggests we should not leave it solely to an under-resourced agency to complete the necessary investigations into wrongdoing. To be clear, Elections Alberta appears to have acted once it had the evidence it believed it needed. It issued a cease and desist letter on April 28th, sent representatives to a Centurion event on the 29th, and obtained an emergency injunction from the King's Bench on April 30th. Could it have acted on earlier credible tips? Absolutely. Why it didn't? That should be a core question of a public inquiry. The agency is the custodian of the list of electors. It distributes the list to authorized political actors. It sends copies of the list to track misuse. It is responsible for enforcing parts of the Election Act. It is constrained by legislation passed by the government. It is now defending its own response, its own mandate, and the integrity of the democratic system it administers. All of this places Elections Alberta inside the scandal. Whether they acted properly or not, they are an actor in this saga. This doesn't mean Elections Alberta has done anything wrong, but it does mean they cannot be the sole vehicle for public accountability. As both investigator and witness, Elections Alberta needs support, not scapegoating. The best way to provide that is through a public inquiry with a broader mandate than Elections Alberta itself possesses. Much of the reporting thus far is focused on how the scandal impacts the prospects of the separatist movement. Centurion's own stated purpose was to identify and recruit Albertans supportive of separation ahead of a possible referendum. A court injunction is preventing Elections Alberta from validating those signatures, and a ruling later this week could put a stop to the petition altogether. Yes, because one of the things, kids and cubs, of course, is that now that we have seen this lack of care and method and rigor for the safety of the information of people, well, the odds that this list will be tied up in court well past October 19th have just skyrocketed. Now, according to Jason Markusoff, this was from April 11th, the court's challenge that's already in place, already underway, it comes from First Nations, right? The argument First Nations groups made in an Edmonton courthouse wasn't only aiming to block Alberta Separatist petition drive towards a referendum, even if that was the specific narrow goal of an injunction at a related hearing. Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation and other litigants are challenging the very idea that a province can split from Canada and in doing so sever their constitutionally protected First Nations treaties. Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation, or ACFN, is centered in northeast Alberta, but its ancestors followed caribou throughout what's now Saskatchewan and Northwest Territories. And members today freely cross those boundaries to hunt, fish, and trap, lawyer Kevin Hill told the court this week. Quote, any constraint on those activities by an international border would violate those rights. After all, a newly independent Alberta would inherently draw a new international boundary within the territory of Treaty 8, which ACFN is part of, which includes parts of Alberta, NWT, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia. Separation stands to physically and legally harm this treaty and the other treaties within Alberta, the lawyers for First Nations argued. The ACFN and the Blackfoot Confederacy in southern Alberta appeared before Justice Shayna Leonard on the week of the 11th, seeking a judicial review of Alberta's chief electoral officer's decision to authorize Stay Free Alberta's citizen initiative petition toward an independence referendum. Sturgeon Lake was requesting an injunction to block processing the more than 177,800 signatures Stay Free claims it has received, but doesn't have to submit until a May 2nd deadline. And I remind you that the number of signatures that they got had the old rules about the number of signatures being decreased not happened, they would not have gotten enough signatures. The demand wasn't there until Danny changed the rules. But the next step will be paused by court order. On Friday, Leonard granted a 1-month stay to ensure Elections Alberta doesn't begin certifying the signature sheets before she has ruled on the ACFN's case. While her 7-page decision on the stay doesn't answer many of the broader questions, Leonard wrote that First Nations, quote, have provided evidence of harm from a lack of consultation and harm to treaty relationships. Okay, so if we're waiting another month, that brings us to June, July, August, September, October. That's 4 months if we can run out that clock. Lawyers for the provincial government, along with ones for separatist group, had asked the judge to not fully block the petitioner's democratic process because of treaty questions at this early stage before a referendum, a potential yes result, or the negotiations that would have to stem from it. Section 35 of the Canadian Constitution states that Indigenous representatives must be part of discussions on amending the Constitution, which provincial independence would require. But signature gathering doesn't breach that guarantee, they argued, nor do other steps. Quote, a vote does not in and of itself change the status of those rights, said Jennifer Kelleher, representing the government. The duty to consult First Nations is not triggered at this point, she added. Quote, nobody's rights have been infringed, not even the tiniest little bit, by the gathering of signatures, said Jeffrey Rath, who represented Separatist leader Mitch Sylvestre in court and is a leading advocate for the movement himself. Shortly after Quebec almost voted to separate in the 1995 referendum, Ottawa asked the Supreme Court to clarify the rules around provincial independence. The High Court's 1998 secession reference decided that unilateral separation would be unlawful, but if a clear separation question received majority support in a referendum, that would require the rest of Canada to negotiate that province's departure and amend the Constitution. From the bench this week, Leonard acknowledged that some argue the law on Indigenous rights has evolved and the answer today may be different from what it was 28 years ago. That's a point constitutional expert Emmett McFarlane makes. Quote, the 1998 Supreme Court reference simply didn't wrestle with this question directly enough, he told CBC News in an interview. McFarlane, a University of Waterloo political science professor and author of books on the Constitution and courts, contended that ruling on Aboriginal title, duty to consult, and other matters have evolved in Canadian law to the point that a province's First Nations would have to consent to secession, something the Supreme Court did not explicitly say 8 years ago. Quote, it's just hard to see how any province could separate from Canada with its existing borders attached if Indigenous people of that province are opposed. It's not a formal veto, McFarlane said, but it would flow from an application and a recognition of the treaty system as part of the Constitution. And if a province can't unilaterally tear up a treaty, which we know they can't, then they are at the very least indirectly prevented from secession. As Leonard wades through such matters, she does so a few months after a counterpart on King's Bench wrestled with them, relating to the same Alberta Separatist petition bid. In December, Justice Colin Feasby considered the Chief Electoral Officer's formal question on Sylvestre's proposed referendum to determine if it would contravene the Constitution. Feasby determined it would, but that ruling was made moot after the province amended the Citizen Initiative Act the same month, letting the Separatists file their petition anew. Despite the fact Feasby's ruling does not appear to be precedent-setting, much of it came up during the First Nations hearings. Quote, this decision has concluded that the transformation of provincial and territorial borders into international borders would contravene the numbered treaties by significantly impairing the exercise of treaty rights by First Nations, he wrote in his December opinion. But he also made points used in arguments by the other side. Quote, this case has not decided that First Nations have a veto over Alberta independence, Feasby wrote. Also, nothing in this decision should be understood to mean that the Constitution cannot be amended or that Alberta cannot hold a referendum on separation. In weeks, the First Nations, the provincial government, and Alberta Separatists will learn how Leonard weighs in on these matters. The ambitions of Quebec Separatists may also be affected by how the court newly considers how provincial independence and Indigenous treaties interact, McFarlane said. On the first of 3 hearing days this week, dozens of supporters logged onto the court's web feed. Some of them used the message feature as a sort of chat room for their commentary before court staff curtailed that live forum. One Separatist supporter despairingly made a reference to the Eagles' big hit to bemoan the argument of First Nations treaties standing in their group's way. Quote, welcome to the Hotel Canada, that person wrote, implying that Separatists may check out, but they can never leave. That wasn't exactly the argument First Nations made this week in court, but they cautioned that the treaties Canada and Indigenous people signed aren't Alberta's to disrupt. So back to Dr. Wesley's article here. This leaves us to trust the petitioner, Stay Free Alberta, that it has the requisite number of signatures to meet the threshold for a referendum. For a variety of reasons, not limited to the doxing scandal, we should be skeptical of their claim. Okay. That's for a variety of reasons. There's also other ones, according to Mr. Wesley. Let's see here. Is there more? Just checking here. Okay, I might have to go back to this thread because doing it on the fly is not going to be an effective use of our time. The Premier should bear all of this in mind as she decides whether or not to legitimize the separatist cause by holding a referendum. I have argued elsewhere that referendums in general and a separatist referendum in particular should not be held under these conditions. But if Premier Danielle Smith is intent on proceeding, she should first call a public inquiry into the voters list scandal and allow the Commission to do its work before Albertans are asked to weigh in on the merits of separation. Lots of calls for public inquiry all of a sudden. Albertans should not be asked to vote in a referendum, especially one concerning the possible breakup of the country, while basic questions remain unanswered about whether the province's voters list, petition process, election agency, referendum machinery, and proponent organizations have been compromised. Were seated names used to pad the petition? Did anyone use the list of electors to find, target, pressure, or mobilize voters in ways the law does not allow? Did any organization use privileged electoral data to accelerate petition collection? Were voters' home addresses used to build up political networks outside the law? Who had access to the database before the injunction? Was it downloaded, scraped, copied, or redistributed? Does anyone still have it? These fundamental questions cannot wait years for criminal or civil proceedings to wind through the system, and Elections Alberta does not have the capacity or authority to investigate them. Holding a referendum with these many unanswered questions will lend credence to those who challenge the outcome and deny losers consent to the victor. A public inquiry is a truth-seeking process, and all parties to the scandal should have an interest in clearing the air. The Premier says she wants accountability. No better way than to call an inquiry empowered to get to the bottom of the scandal. The UCP says it did not provide the list of electors to any unauthorized outside group or individual. Good. It should welcome an inquiry given the close connections between separatist leaders and their party. The Republican Party of Alberta says it will cooperate. Good. It too should welcome an inquiry. The Centurion product said it relied on a third-party data provider and will comply with Elections Alberta's investigation. If so, they should welcome an inquiry. Despite social media posts confirming that they encouraged their own canvassers to use the Centurion app, the Alberta Prosperity Project and Stay Free Alberta say they had no improper connection to Parker's database or any unauthorized use of the voters list. Fine, they should welcome an inquiry to make their case to the public. Separatist organizers and canvassers said they did not use the list of electors to boost, manipulate, or fudge the signature collection process. Good, they should welcome an inquiry to clear the air. Those alleging that the NDP, Elections Alberta, or any other actor has behaved improperly should also welcome an inquiry. Allegations should be tested with evidence, not amplified through insinuation. Right now, the scandal is breeding distrust from every direction. Separatists accuse Election Alberta of bias. Critics accuse separatists of undermining democracy and privilege. Political parties deny involvement. Public agencies defend their integrity. Citizens are left wondering whether their personal information is in unknown hands. This is exactly the kind of situation public inquiries are designed for. Some may suggest sending this matter to a committee of the legislature. That would be a mistake. A legislative committee would almost certainly break down along party lines and turn this into a partisan theater. Government MLAs would defend the premier, opposition MLAs would attack the government, witnesses would be selected, framed, and questioned through partisan lenses. Their credibility would be dragged through the mud by the opposing side. One wonders who would agree to participate voluntarily in such a spectacle. The scandal's too important for that. When democratic processes and institutions are under threat, the repair process must rise above ordinary partisanship and processes. A public inquiry can do what a legislative committee cannot: appoint independent commissioners, retain nonpartisan counsel, summon witnesses, compel documents, hear testimony under oath, lend support and legitimacy to those who testify, hold public hearings, protect sensitive evidence where necessary, and produce recommendations grounded in a complete evidentiary record. Most importantly, an independent public inquiry would, beyond the setting of its mandate, be free to investigate without direction from the government. This moment requires that level of power and independence. The terms of reference for the public inquiry should be broad enough to connect the dots, but focused enough to report quickly. The inquiry itself would take months to complete its work, 6 at least, which means it would not be completed in time for the October 19th referendums, and that's probably why Danielle Smith is going to try to fight tooth, nail, kneecap, elbow cap, fingernails, baby toes, and everything to not even acknowledge that anybody's asking for a public inquiry, even less admitting that one is needed. No, we won't need a public inquiry. We have this. It would be so unreasonable to do that. Besides, so many people democratically want this vote on the 19th. We really have to do it. We have some pressing issues. We don't need time for public inquiry. We're sure that everybody behaved honorable, and they'll do better next time. We're moving forward. Or something like that. At a minimum, any referendum on separatism should be held after this public inquiry. The petition and petitioners are at the center of a scandal that deserves to be resolved before they are permitted to campaign. And Elections Alberta's integrity needs to be affirmed before we head again to the polls. That means not holding a vote on separatism at the same time as the other 9 referendums in fall 2026. I would go further to suggest no referendum or provincial election whatsoever should be held until we have cleared the air on the voters list and address concerns through reform. Except that allows Danielle Smith to be premier indefinitely. Terrible consequence or terrible side effect of a probably necessary recommendation here. Any nefarious actors, domestic or foreign, could otherwise exploit our vulnerability. This would throw any result into question, further eroding losers' consent. At a minimum, the public inquiry should examine the following. Quote, first, the chain of custody. How did the list of electors move from Elections Alberta to authorized recipients, and from there to any unauthorized users, vendors, apps, databases, campaigns, organizations, or volunteers? Second, the scope of exposure. Who accessed the databases? Who searched it? Who downloaded, copied, retained, scraped, exported, or redistributed it? Were copies created before the injunction? Where are they now? The answers to these questions might be well, we have no way of knowing, but even that information is important for Albertans to hear and lawmakers to base reforms upon. Third, the political use of the data. Was the list used for petition collection, referendum organizing, party recruitment, separatist mobilization, fundraising, voter contact, or any other political purpose outside the law? Fourth, the role of organizations and individuals. What role, if any, was played by the Republican Party of Alberta, the Centurion Project, Alberta Prosperity Project, Stay Free Alberta, and third-party advertisers, app developers, data vendors, political consultants, campaign volunteers, Take Back Alberta figures, other partisan actors, or anyone else connected to the matter? Could Elections Alberta have done more to protect the voters list given its current mandate and resources? There are other questions that may be hived off to a post-inquiry commission given the time sensitivities involved. These could include the adequacy of the law. Did Alberta's Election Act, Citizen Initiative Act, Referendum Act, privacy statutes, and political finance rules provide sufficient protection? Did recent legislative amendments weaken Elections Alberta's ability to investigate? Are penalties strong enough? No. Are rules around political data clear enough? No, clearly. If they made this mistake, well, not mistake, sorry, if they found a way to intentionally misinterpret the rules, and then say, yeah, well, no, we could do this, then maybe the rules are not clear enough. Does the agency, the capacity of Elections Alberta, does the agency have the resources, staffing, technology, forensic capacity, and legal authority required to protect the list of electors and investigate its misuse? The privacy law gap. Given that political parties hold some of the most sensitive information about citizens, why are they excluded from Alberta's Personal Information Protection Act? What would it take to regulate political parties' collection, use, retention, disclosure, and destruction of personal information? and remedies for harmed Albertans. What immediate protections should be offered to the vulnerable people whose addresses have been exposed? What notifications, support, relocation, legal, or security remedies are necessary? Finally, the inquiry should recommend what must change before Albertans are asked to vote in another referendum or provincial election. On behalf of Albertans, Premier Smith should demand the accountability she says we deserve. The Premier should not wait for the RCMP. She should not wait for lawsuits. She should not defer to Elections Alberta. She should not send this to a partisan committee. She should call a public inquiry now. If the government is serious about protecting democracy, it should want the full truth to restore confidence in the integrity of our electoral processes and institutions. If the government is serious about the integrity of referendums, one of its policy tools of choice, it should want to know whether the petition and referendum process has been irrevocably compromised. If the government is serious about restoring public trust, it should embrace an inquiry with the power to compel documents, hear testimony under oath, and report publicly. If the government is serious about privacy, it should want to know how the personal information of nearly 3 million Albertans became searchable online and how it could be used to undermine our democratic processes and our safety. Before Albertans are asked to sign another petition, vote in another referendum, or cast another ballot in a provincial election under this cloud, they deserve the full truth. Only a public inquiry can provide it. And those were the words of Dr. Jared Wesley, professor at University of Alberta, political science professor, calling for a public inquiry. And one is needed. There's no way around one at this. So now Daniel Smith is going to do her best to find a way. But it is vitally important. That's as he states, this is exactly the type of situation for which public inquiries were created. So if she doesn't, hey, boy, 15 minutes to the Governor General's announcement says kit uncover, and that was about 3 minutes ago. So okay, let's see if I can extend a few minutes in order so that we can cover that today as I defuzzify myself. There we go. There we go. Defuzzified Beaver. All right. Let's see if I had anything else on that. No, those are the ones. Okay. Since we're picking up a little time here, waiting for the announcement of the Governor General, something else happened yesterday that was particularly juicy and got some tongues wagging. Kids and cubs, because well, we know what's listen. We have the Bobbsey twins here. We have Danielle Smith and Doug Ford. Each of them changing laws and engaging in activities that require the RCMP to get involved somehow. Both having issues with respecting democratic processes. I mean, remember Doug Ford kind of changed the rules to a municipal election in the middle of the game at one point, a couple of years ago. Yeah, so none of them particularly fond of the law, let's say. Doug Ford, as you know, recently changed laws so that Canadians and Ontarians cannot access information as to what many people in the government, pretty much all MPPs and their staffers, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this going back to 1988, when the law came into effect. A lot of people are suspecting that the reason he's done this is because he maybe engaged in some criminality. And as and why they're suspecting that is because throughout his entire mandate as premier, he has refused to do any government business whatsoever on a government cell phone that would be supplied to him. He has been doing all of them on his personal cell phone. And now that there is trouble, now that a court has ordered that his phone logs be released, because um, when you refuse your government phone and you decide to do all of your business on your personal phone, you make the decision that in that moment your personal phone is now a government work phone. It is no longer a personal phone. And he was asked to surrender his phone records so that people could see who he was talking to and when and how many times, to see if there might be some evidence that he was doing things in a not legal manner when he had unilaterally decided to transfer about $8 billion worth of public wealth to people. And then there's been a whole bunch of other things since. Marit Stiles, leader of the Ontario NDP, was at a scrum yesterday. And she has no Fs left to give at all. She said something, like I said, that got tongues wagging because she went there. And the reason why she went there is probably because she knows that Doug Ford, for all his tough talk, is not going to do anything about what she said, because one, in order to do so, that would involve discovery. And well, Doug Ford has shown through his behavior that he's not too keen on discovery. I mean, if you were okay with discovery, we would have the phone records now, wouldn't we? But hey, let's see what Mademoiselle Stiles has to say.
But listen, don't worry about it, Doug, because when I'm premier, I'm going to call a public inquiry into all of this, and we're going to get our hands on all of that. And you know what? Maybe you won't get another mandate because you'll be in prison, Doug. Yeah.
What?
I think he's like,
what?
I think that when we call a public inquiry, which is what it took to get to the bottom of some of the questions around other governments, I think it's a lot of terrible stuff is going to come out. Why is the premier hiding all of this information from the people of Ontario? Why doesn't he want anybody to know what's on his phone? Because there's dirty dealings around the Greenbelt. The RCMP is investigating him, and I would be very surprised if at the end of this, there might very well be charges laid. Absolutely. I mean, look, other governments have had people end up behind bars for less than this.
She said it, and she did not stutter. And then you have all these journalists go, ooh, whoa. Why the ooh, wow, no? And you've seen this guy go for the last 8 years. Have you ever seen somebody, journalists, stick his thumb in so many sticky pudding pies? Seen somebody stick their thumb into so many pies, all of them somewhat suspicious, and at the end of the day, it turns out that he was trying to do the right thing all along, just a little misguided in the way he went about it. It's been 8 years. And that's just the provincial stuff. It's not like he doesn't have a reputation from before. Just saying. Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's like, at worst, the man is the most corrupt premier we've had in Canadian history. Probably a tie now with Danielle Smith, to be totally honest. But probably the most, this is way more corrupt than the Grant Devine government in Saskatchewan. And up until now, I think that is the one that is like the hallmark for like super corrupt provincial governments. This is way more corrupt. Way more corrupt. Allegedly. Use the word because I have to. But this is way, 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 way more stinky and greasy. So greasy. Marit Stiles is correct. People have gone to jail for far less than what is suspected here. But yeah, Tweedledee and Tweedledummer, Danielle and Doug, seem to be copying off each other's tests a lot lately. It shouldn't be surprising that someone would believe, after all this time and the extremely lengthy track record, that Doug Ford might be a candidate for president. Is it really that hard to believe? But yeah, just unbelievable. Unbelievable, this man. And of course, this gentleman, of course, is going to be flooding the zone in the meantime, and probably will. We're getting to the point of time where he's going to plan another 13 to 14 week vacation, probably. We'd like to say on the show here that the kids are all right. There's this clip that I'm going to present to you while we're waiting to hear the announcement for the Governor General. This young lady, it's 3 minutes and 49 seconds. But she's noticed the pattern. She's been paying attention. And she is going to explain to you, kids and cubs, how it is that Doug Ford works. She has spotted the pattern. Okay. It seems that the thing did not come up. So let me put this thing back up the right way, because there was no audio and video. So there we go. There's the young lady. Please pay attention to this. She knows what she's talking about. She knows what time it is.
Our democracy is dying, and I need everyone to look around and notice the pattern of what is happening. I fully understand that Doug Ford has a majority government, but how he is governing is the antithesis of democracy. Let me walk you through the pattern of what he is doing. Last year, Parliament was only open 52 days out of the 365 days of the year. And this is how Doug Ford has been slowly destroying Ontario. He first takes ridiculously long breaks, like 13, 14-week summer and winter/Christmas breaks. During this time, his cabinet will come up with bills that are slowly taking away our rights and slowly destroying Ontario. Just before Parliament is set to come back to session, they will start flooding the zone with all of these little drips of information or announcements or certain things that they are going to budget for. Then when Parliament opens, he starts ramming through these bills, bypassing the question period or the public debates or public hearings that we're supposed to have, where we as the people should be able to voice our opinions on the bills that are being proposed. When he floods the zone, we cannot focus on any one thing or any one issue or any little thing that he has proposed, because there's just so much stuff that there's nothing to focus on. And then as soon as he rams through these unpopular bills, after he has bypassed the public hearings, he then shuts Parliament down again. Because I don't know if everybody knows this, Parliament is currently closed again until May, right after he has passed his FOI bill. He has exempted himself and his cabinet and his party from basically most FOI requests, going back as far as January 1st, 1988. That was before I was born. I am almost 30 years old. And we can no longer receive any requests or get any information on anything the Conservative Party has been doing since 1988. He, in effect, passed this bill in the middle of the night. And obviously, there is outrage and backlash, but nobody can hold him accountable because right now Parliament is closed. Parliament doesn't come back until May. And I know May is next week, but still, that gives it time for people to move on to something else. And I really don't understand how it's even legal or constitutional for him to pass this bill, especially when there's an active RCMP investigation. And he is basically passing a bill to get around something the courts already ruled. The courts recently ruled that his personal phone was subject to FOI requests because he doesn't use his premier phone at all. And so then he just puts out a bill and makes it retroactive so that nobody can actually get those FOI requests. That's insane. How is that democracy? That means that all of the checks and balances that are in place to hold him to account don't actually have any teeth. He also passed a bill to move out the election so that he can stay premier even longer. So again, like, where are the checks and balances? How is this democracy? This is really just starting to look like a dictatorship and not anywhere close to democracy. I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers, but I cannot fathom that we live in a reality that there's literally nothing that we can do right now to stop Doug Ford.
And there you go. Out of the mouth of babes gets cubs. People like this young lady is why I do not fear for our future. They are paying attention, they are global, they are connected, and they are motivated because they see what is happening to their future. This country is full of very engaged, very intelligent, very well spoken, highly organized, and inclusive children. And what they are being put through, I do not approve at all. Just unbelievable. All right. So, kits and cubs, we do have the news about who is the Governor General. And I guess the predictions were indeed correct. It is indeed Justice Louise Arbour, who has been chosen as the next Governor General, nominated, I should say, as the next Governor General of Canada, according to the CBC's John Paul Tasker. Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to name former Supreme Court Justice Louise Arbour as Canada's next Governor General, according to sources speaking to CBC's French language service. Oh, wait a minute. This is expected to announce. Did they actually announce? I will guess yes here. Prime Minister, so let's see. According to CBC's French language service, Radio-Canada, Carney is picking a francophone with a long legal resume that includes stints prosecuting war crimes in Rwanda and Yugoslavia. Gee, let's just put it this way. What kind of signal do you think it sends to Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, Benjamin Netanyahu, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and all the others? What kind of message does it send to the dictators and wannabe dictators and autocrats and people who will cause destruction, make destruction rain down on people. And people who are have no problem with the commission of war crimes so long as they're the ones doing it, allegedly. What does it say to them that the representative of our head of state, the King of England, who recently reminded the Americans about why it is they had that little tea party, what would it say to them that the representative of the King of England in Canada just happens to be a lawyer who prosecuted war crimes? Hey, Donald, you think we're going to help? You think we're going to help you? You see, behind this fan, I got a little sign language going on, Donald. There's a little sign language going on behind this fan. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Our head, the representative of our head of state, knows everything there is to know about war crimes, buddy. Yeah, really. Oh, by the way, it was pinky up. Yes, it was the pinky up finger the whole time behind that fan. And I swear it's true, like the people from the Centurion Project swear that all their signatures are legitimate. Oh my God. Okay. I'm seeing some wording here that the Prime Minister might be live now with the governor, with the new nomination for the Governor General. So I'm just going to go take a look. Yes, it is. There is a live tab from CBC here. So I can definitely take a look here at what they're doing. Wow, they have been really putting a lot of time into the lead up to this announcement. But here we go, kits and cubs. I think I have them just as they are about to enter. So let me make sure that I put it up right here. There you go. That is the right one. Let's make sure that it is showing. Oh, come on. Do not start that now. Showing. There we go. And let's see what it is that we have to, that is going to be said here, kids and cubs.
Previous Governor General Mary Simon held that role since July 2021. The Prime Minister is up at the microphone. Let's listen in.
Bonjour tout le monde. Nous sommes réunis ici sur le territoire traditionnel
on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. And that recognition of this territory shows the common history of the people of this country. We wanted to pursue truth and reconciliation together through our actions as well as through our words.
We're gathering this morning at the National Gallery of Canada. A few blocks away from here, at the then Clarendon Hotel, 146 years ago, the first exhibition was held of the Canadian Academy of the Arts. That academy was the dream of the then Governor General, the Marquess of Lorne, and his wife, Her Royal Highness Princess Louise. They believed that a young confederation needed institutions through which it could see itself and through which it could be seen by the world. 388 works hung in the Clarendon that evening, and those works would become the seeds of this gallery, which today holds more than 17,000 works of Canadian, Indigenous, and global art. Canada was built on the foundations of three peoples: Indigenous, French, and and British. Indigenous peoples on the continent sustained its lands and waters and built trading networks from coast to coast to coast for thousands of years before any European arrival. The French built a society shaped by river and forest, by partnership with indigenous nations, and by a determination to flourish in a new world. When the British came, that civilization did not disappear. It suffered, but endured, and in time it grew into the federation that we know today. Let's be clear. That founding was imperfect. It excluded too many. It was built in part on the dispossession and broken promises to Indigenous peoples. But that founding contained an insight that has carried us forward. That unity does not require uniformity. That our differences are a strength to be nurtured, not a risk to be managed. That insight has been sustained and then reinforced, generation after generation, by our institutions, Parliament, the courts, the Crown, the treaties, the Charter, the public service, a free press.
Thanks to these institutions, as such a vast and diversified country as ours, we have managed not only to remain united, but to prosper. In a less civilized and more dangerous world, those institutions are now more important than ever.
A year ago, His Majesty King Charles opened our Parliament with a speech from the throne, the first time in nearly 70 years that Canada's sovereign had done so in person. The Crown is a continuous thread through our constitutional life. It is, as His Majesty himself said, a symbol of Canada in all her richness and dynamism. And the Governor-General is the Crown's representative in Canada, Commander-in-Chief of the Canadian Armed Forces, steward of our traditions of peace, order, and good government. And above all, the Governor-General is the guardian of our constitutional order. The most demanding part of that role is rarely seen. It's the duty to ensure that government in Canada is formed, sustained, and, when the time comes, dismissed in accordance with law and convention. It's a duty that calls for sound judgment, deep learning, and an unwavering commitment to the rule of law. That is the office. And it is the office to which I have asked His Majesty to appoint a Canadian whose entire life has been dedicated to that very principle. I'm very pleased to announce that on my recommendation, His Majesty has approved the appointment of the Honourable Louise Arbour as the 31st Governor-General of Canada. Née à Montréal, Louise
Born in
Arbour
Montreal,
a fait ses
Louise
études à
Arbour
l'Université de Montréal.
studied at the University of Montreal. She was admitted to the Quebec Bar in 1971 and in the Ontario Bar in 1977. She began her career as a researcher at Osgoode Hall and as a fervent defender of civil liberties in this country.
Louise Arbour was appointed to the Supreme Court of Ontario, as it was then known. In 1990, she was appointed to the Court of Appeal for Ontario. In 1999, she was appointed to the Supreme Court of Canada. One of Canada's most demanding judicial careers, more than enough for one lifetime. That career would serve only as the foundation for what came next, because her most consequential work as a jurist was beyond the Canadian courtroom. In 1996, Louise Arbour was appointed by the United Nations Security Council as Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Tribunals for the former Yugoslavia and for Rwanda, the first international criminal tribunals since Nuremberg. She inherited two institutions that many believed could not succeed. She made them succeed. Under her leadership, the tribunal secured the first conviction for genocide since the adoption of the Genocide Convention in 1948. The Akayesu judgment, which also established for the first time that sexual violence can constitute a weapon of genocide and a crime against humanity. And in 1999, in the middle of a war, she signed the indictment of a sitting head of state, Slobodan Milosevic, for crimes against humanity and violations of the laws of war, something that had never been done before. A new precedent
for justice and a lack of favoritism. This is not about technical prowess. Her achievements are the foundation of a modern state and a modern system where no one, whoever that person may be, however well protected he may be, is beyond the reach of the law.
Is the foundation of Canadian citizenship. We're a country whose civic identity is grounded in the universality of rights, that what is owed to one of us is owed to all of us. And what is owed to a Canadian is owed, in our tradition, to every human being, whether or not they have the great good fortune to live here. In 2004, Louise Arbour left the Supreme Court of Canada to become United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. For 4 years, she gave voice to those whose dignity was denied, in places where the powerful preferred silence. She did not flinch, and she never confused being heard with being safe. Il existe une troisième fil conducteur dans la carrière de
There is another part of Ms. Arbour's career, and this one is not as often mentioned, but just as important. 3 times, Louise was asked to look at an institution that had not met its obligations to the people it was responsible for, and to find the necessary measures to remedy the situation. In 1995, Ms. Arbour presided over the inquiry with respect to the women's prison, and her work made it possible to modernize practices affecting women in Canada. As Commissioner, she asked the system to show itself worthy of the respect of the people it chose to serve. In 2022, when she had finished her study, she drafted and filed a report on issues in the Canadian Armed Forces. Her recommendations are currently being implemented, and they will redefine Canadian military justice.
Her work matters in and of itself. It also tells us something about what Louise Arbour will bring to Rideau Hall. The conviction that institutions are the load-bearing walls of a civil society, and that they remain trustworthy only as long as someone is willing to hold them accountable. Louise Arbour has held nearly every office a Canadian jurist can hold, and several that no Canadian has held before. She has been recognized with nearly 100 honors and awards, including 42 honorary doctorates from universities around the world. She's a companion of the Order of Canada, our country's highest civilian honor. But the measure of her career is neither in the offices she has held nor the awards she's received. It's in the lives she has changed through her service. Survivors of genocide who saw justice in their lifetimes. Women in prisons in Canada whose conditions were improved because she said what no one else would say. Members of our armed forces who can serve today with greater dignity because of the report that she wrote. Des millions de personnes.
Millions of persons whose rights are now better protected because somewhere an institution that Louise Arbour contributed to build profited from her work. Millions of people who have benefited from the norms that she established. That is the service. A service based on principles.
Across more than 5 decades, in every role she's held, the Honourable Louise Arbour has carried the same conviction, that a free society depends on institutions properly being held to account, that the law stands between power and the powerless, that the dignity of every person should not be a product of the accidents of geography, citizenship, or convenience, and that Canada's place in the world is to be a country that lives those propositions and helps others to live them as well. A deeply Canadian conviction, one that's older than our charter and broader than our borders. It runs through our public life, from the person's case to the patriation of our Constitution, from the building of Medicare to the building of the United Nations. C'est la conviction qu'une communauté
It's the conviction that a community is more than the parts, and it is through this commitment that we can live together. This is something to which Louise Arbour devoted her life, and this will be invaluable as she fulfills the duties she is about to undertake.
We observe that Madame Arbour will succeed an exemplary Governor-General. Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Mary Simon, has been a steadfast representative of Canada and our institutions at home and around the world. As the first Indigenous person to serve in this role, she's carried forward a lifetime of advocacy for Inuit rights, for Indigenous self-determination, and for the preservation of our Indigenous languages, cultures, and identities. Elle nous a rappelé que la réconciliation est une responsabilité.
That reconciliation is a responsibility to be experienced every day. Also, Ms. Simon was a champion of literacy and education, which she considers to be the foundation of our determination. Her leadership also contributed to highlight the mental health issues within Northern and Indigenous communities. She was able to highlight the problems that are too often neglected, and therefore gave a voice to so many people who are suffering and who are too often ignored. Her legacy will endure, not only thanks to her, but also thanks to the way she fulfilled her mission, with elegance, with determination, and with a full commitment to this country.
To His Excellency Whit Fraser, to your family, thank you for your extraordinary service to Canada. At a time when much of the world is buffeted by crises and the worst are full of passionate intensity, Canada's history, our institutions, and our enduring traditions matter more than ever. We retain our convictions. We reinforce our institutions. As Mary Simon has, Louise Arbour will represent the best of Canada to Canadians and to the world. A country that's a bastion of security, prosperity, and justice, a beacon to a world lost at sea. A Canada that is clear-eyed about the challenges we face and steadfast in the values we uphold. A Canada that's not just strong, but good. A Canada that's not just prosperous, but fair. A Canada that is not just for some most of the time, but for all of the time. Madame Arbour, au nom du gouvernement du Canada,
Ms. Arbour, on behalf of the Government of Canada and all the people of Canada, thank you for agreeing to serve our country once again.
It's my pleasure to introduce the 31st Governor-General of Canada, the Honourable Louise Arbour. Madame.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes.
Hello, everyone. And Prime Minister, let me begin by thanking you for that very wonderful presentation, but also for your confidence in me. I want to express my gratitude to the Sovereign for this opportunity to serve Canada in this role. I also want to point out the extraordinary role played by Mary Simon, who served our country with tireless devotion. She represented all Canadians with dignity and compassion.
Canada is a wonderful country, shaped by its diversity of people, of perspectives and experiences, but I think shaped also mostly by a common respect for strong public institutions and for the rule of law. Above all, we all strive to provide for each other in a spirit of equality and generosity. I'm very mindful of the legacy that I'm stepping into. J'accepte ces responsabilités avec un sens
I accept this
profond du
responsibility
devoir.
with a deep sense of duty at a time when Canadians are confronted with complexity and change. Aware of this reality, I think we must develop the necessary tools to meet those challenges and reaffirm our confidence in each other. The strength of this country resides in stable institutions managed with wisdom and sustained through the desire for the well-being of our country and all the planet. This will be a great honor for me to represent Canada and to celebrate our successes. It will also be a privilege to be present if we end up facing adversity. And I'm fully confident in the ability to serve as Chief of the Canadian Armed Forces. I have a great deal of respect for the service and professionalism of the men and women who serve, and it will be a huge honor for me to serve in that role.
I will strive to serve with honor, dedication, and integrity. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, on est prêt, nous deux.
So we are both ready to answer your questions.
Good morning, Madame Arbour, Prime Minister Ashley Burke, CBC News. There's an expense program for former governors generals that allows them to claim up more than $200,000 a year. That's on top of their expenses. And the reimbursements last year totaled than $550,000. A Privy Council report in 2019 said there wasn't enough transparency around this, that Canadians should know exactly how that money is being spent and by who, and it called for more transparent public reporting. Do you think this program should continue? And if so, will you commit to ensuring that there is more, the details about how this money is spent and by who will be made public?
Well, thank you very much for that question. I'm not familiar with the details that you're quoting. I'll look into it, ensure that, as you say, that there's adequate transparency around the expenses. I'll just observe that the Governor Generals have served our country with distinction, and in the cases in their post. Time after being Governor General, continue to serve Canadians through their charitable and other foundation activities, for which I'm personally grateful, and I think all Canadians are as well. Thank you.
Do you think that the details of that should be public? And to both of you, what is the Governor General's role right now, do you think, in promoting national unity at a time when it looks like there could be a referendum on separation in Alberta, and as well a party that wants one in Quebec could return to power?
So I'll begin. I think I answered the first part of your second question. I will follow up with you, with everybody, transparently. In terms of the Governor General represents all Canadians, and I think very importantly represents what's at the heart of our institutions and the spirit of Canada, that we're all equal. The rule of law applies to everyone. the powerful as well as the powerless, that we believe in democracy and the processes. So with respect to the many great strengths of this country, they're as appreciated in my home province of Alberta as they are appreciated across the territories where I was born and across this great land. And the Governor General's role is institutional in the sense of very clear constitutional responsibilities that are called into need from time to time, but also to represent Canada at home, best of Canada to Canadians and abroad.
Next question. I can only echo first the constitutional role of the Governor General, which I think is a very important part of the function. But beyond that, I think there is a space for the Governor General to be conducive of Canadian dialogue with respect to diverse. I've mentioned the diversity of our people, diversity of views, of opinions, of experiences, but all that, I think, in a spirit of respect and moving the country forward in an ambitious, united way.
Next question, Laurence.
Oui, bonjour, Laurence Martin de Radio-Canada.
Laurence Martin, I have a question for both of you. You are francophone. Your predecessor did not speak French. Do you believe that was a mistake by Mr. Trudeau to appoint someone who was bilingual but did not speak French? I'll begin. I think it is a good choice now to have Ms. Arbour as our 31st Governor General of Canada. Yes, it is important that there be bilingualism within all the federal government's institutions. Was it a mistake by Mr. Trudeau? Ms. Simon, as I just said, I began to explain the many contributions made by Ms. Simon to this country, which are very important when it comes to reconciliation, mental health, and representing Canada right around the world. We will build on the foundations of the last 30 Governors General. Ms. Arbour, I already mentioned that, first of all, I have a great deal of respect for all the people who came before me in this role. I have a great deal of respect and a lot of admiration for the work done by Ms. Simon, and I have no opinion on the decisions that were made with respect to the choice that was made previously. Mr. Carney said you represent the British Crown here in Canada. Do you consider yourself to be a monarchist, Ms. Arbour? Well, I don't really know what that term is supposed to mean. I will give you a legal and constitutional answer. I will serve as the representative of the Crown in a constitutional monarchy based on a parliamentary system, in a constitutional arrangement that has very well served Canada, particularly in recent years, and I'm quite convinced that this will continue to be the case.
I forget the question.
Can someone repeat the question in English, please?
Yes. Yeah, am I a monarchy? Well, I started by saying that this term is unfortunately very often used in a pejorative way. What I can say is that I will accede to a function in which I will be the representative of the Crown in a constitutional arrangement that I think has served Canada extremely well throughout our history, but even more in recent decades. I think a system that will continue to provide continuity in our institutions and our form of governance.
Next question, prochaine question. Lisa?
Good morning, Raisa Patel, the Toronto Star. Prime Minister, you said in your recent trip to Armenia that it's your strong personal view that as the international order will be rebuilt, it will be rebuilt out of Europe. What did you mean by that? Do you see a future where Europe overtakes the U.S. as the center of the world order?
Well, I think there's a direct line to what we're celebrating today. I think we are celebrating the constitutional role of the Governor General. I and other Canadians are celebrating Madame Arbour's willingness to serve in that role. which is a belief in democracy, the rule of law, that we're all equal before that law. And imperfectly, the international system had variants of that. Madame Arbour's part of her very distinguished career was to make sure that those who transgressed in the most egregious ways those rules, norms, standards were prosecuted and brought to justice. That system, as I've observed in the past, and I'm not alone in making these observations, has been greatly weakened and needs to be rebuilt, and rebuilt perhaps in a different way, but rebuilt based on the same principles. And Canada, the European Union, the United Kingdom, Australia, other countries share very firm convictions with those principles, and we will work together to rebuild. And obviously there's a critical mass in Europe of countries, 27 members of the European Union, but then a broader grouping that you saw in that meeting in Armenia, over 50 countries that have some form of association with Europe and either fully support or are moving towards those principles. So that's what I meant by those comments, and I stand by them.
Follow-up.
Alberta Separatists say they have more than 300,000 signatures to potentially trigger a referendum vote. What will you do to stop that referendum from winning?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is there's, again, keeping with the discussion today, there's the rule of law, there's the Clarity Act, which has been opined upon by the Supreme Court, not at the same time when Madame Arbour was sitting on the Supreme Court, but has been the judgment passed there, and any referenda in any part of Canada need to be consistent with that. As you know as well, there's a judicial, you may know, there's a judicial challenge separately but relatedly by Indigenous nations in Alberta regarding the question. So those processes have to be followed through. But if you bring it into, so I'm observing that because of the solemnity of the moment that we're observing today and celebrating today. But if you bring it into my day-to-day responsibilities and those of the government, it's to continue to act as we have from the start, which is in the spirit of cooperative federalism, making the country work, making it work for Albertans, making it work for Indigenous peoples, making it work for all Canadians. Thank you.
Next question, prochaine question.
Bonjour, ici Raphaël Pirot du Journal de Québec. Question pour vous deux.
I have a question for both of you. Ms. Arbour, you are someone who is quite frank, and you criticized Donald Trump's government on Radio-Canada, saying that the invasion of Iran was pure folly. And in that regard, I'd like you to talk about how you think the U.S. government will react to your appointment. Do you not fear losing your ability to speak out in this new role? In the past, I have held many offices within the United Nations, and of course as a jurist and justice. And in some periods of my life, I was a citizen who had full freedom of expression, and there are privileges and powers that come with certain duties as well as certain constraints, and I can fully accommodate them. Now, I believe that public personalities also fully understand that environment. You can have expressed opinions in a certain context that are not opinions that you would want to highlight in an official context. So I think people fully understand the difference between private comments and positions that you are taking as part of your office. Mr. Carney, yes, I think that was a perfect answer from Ms. Arbour. So do you think the Trump government will try and fight back against this appointment? Well, I believe that the President observed, to much applause, that the United States is founded on the rule of law human rights law. And it's the same principle that applies in the Canadian way that we are reinforcing today. So that's my answer.
In English, I think you understood the question. So, you know, as His Majesty King Charles observed just last week when he spoke before Congress to great applause, that the United States is a country founded on the rule of law, the right of individuals, and this is what we are reinforcing, celebrating today, an institution at the core of our constitutional system, with someone whose entire career has been dedicated to those principles, coming into such a responsibility at a crucial time. Thank you.
Prochaine question. Next question.
Hi, good morning. Cameron Ryan with CPAC. My question is to Madame Arbour. You authored a report 4 years ago on sexual assault in the Canadian Armed Forces, and you issued 48 recommendations stemming from your investigation. In the 4 years since then, have you seen any progress in how the military treats sexual assault cases and the culture in the forces you called out in that report? You're now the Commander-in-Chief of the Canadian Armed Forces. Will that be an issue that will be a priority for you as Governor General?
I have to say I haven't followed developments and I wasn't in a position as a citizen to follow the developments with the same level of scrutiny than I did when I issued that report. The report speaks for itself. As to whether there have been initiatives, both formal and informal, this is out in the public domain. I don't have particular insight.
Si je vous permettez, just to add, 47 of the 48 recommendations of Madame Arbour's report have been implemented. There's one that is outstanding, which is one of the core, I referred to it obliquely in my remarks, which is the change to military tribunals, military justice, and that is before Parliament in Bill C-11, and it is an absolute priority. It's been from the start, which is why the government introduced it, and we will put it in place. Yeah.
My follow-up is to the Prime Minister. Premier Smith is in town later this week for the Canada Strong and Free Conference. Do you have plans to meet with her and discuss the possible upcoming referendum?
That's funny. I thought she was in town to meet me because, yes, there are plans to meet. And if that's good, if she's here, she can take in other activities. But I'm sure the highlight of her visit to the great city of Ottawa will be a side visit to Nepean, my constituency, but also we're having a meeting that's being settled. I can't remember if it's Thursday afternoon or Friday morning, but it's been arranged. I very much look forward to seeing
Will
her.
referendum talk be on the agenda for you?
That was your follow-up.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Oui, bonjour. Hélène Buzetti, les Coop de l'information. Ma première question est pour vous, Madame Arbour.
My first question is for you, Ms. Arbour. You had an extraordinary career. Mr. Carney referred to this. You're known as to be a woman who likes action, who's on the ground. You even shortened your stay in the Supreme Court. Now, I'm wondering what you think you can achieve in a position which involves a lot of handshaking, handing out medals, and so forth. Well, you referred to the happiest part of the office. I thought you were going to ask me how I would be able to deal with more serious duties. I will certainly undertake all those duties with enthusiasm and commitment. People asked me the same question when I agreed to become a Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada after spending 3 years in war zones. For journalists who are here, who work on the ground, you understand the adrenaline that goes along with that job. So I've experienced both, and I can say that not only am I serene, but I'm very enthusiastic at the idea of serving Canada in this new office. And I have pretty much the same question for you, Mr. Carney. You talked about her extraordinary professional profile. What do you see in that profile that will serve the cause of the government? Do you see a specific mission for Ms. Arbour in her new role? Thank you for your question, Ms. Buzetti. That's a very important question, but it's not appropriate for me to talk about a special mission, because in the mandate of a Governor General, there are a number of different elements, anticipated as well as unanticipated. And it's important to say that it's important to shake hands and hand out medals. That is an aspect of Canada, to celebrate this country. And it's extremely important, in my view, that part of the role. You have to be human. Third, there is a constitutional role that's extremely important. From time to time, we observe that role being played during periods of prorogation or during minority governments. It's difficult to anticipate all the possible challenges or constitutional crises that could occur in a mandate. So obviously we have the chance to take advantage of someone especially able to fulfill the role. And I will have an opportunity to have very in-depth conversations with Ms. Arbour in private on issues that affect Canada and the rest of the world. This is a pivotal moment for this country.
David Aiken, Global News. Good afternoon, and congratulations, Madame Arbour. I would like to ask, your resume was awfully impressive, and the Prime Minister certainly finds it impressive. And yet at times there have been political parties in this country who've taken issue with your work. And I'm going to reference the comment in 2008 of the Treasury Board President at the time, Vic Taves, who, after you concluded your work with the UNHCR, called you, and I'm quoting from his words in the House of Commons, disgusting. And just yesterday, a senior aide to former Prime Minister Harper, Howard Anglin, also former Chief of Staff to Jason Kenney, tweeted out, anybody but Arbour. So there's a point here, is there's conservatives in this country who took issue with you as a, quote, judicial activist and so on, and human rights. And I wondered how you might bridge or seek to make bridges with conservatives who may not be so happy with your appointment. And I think you were probably, Prime Minister, you were probably at the Bank of Canada at the time. I wonder if you'd taken notice of Mr. Taves' comments and what you think about conservatives who didn't seem to have much respect for Ms. Arbour's work at the UNHCR. Madame?
Well, I can tell you that, as I said before, we live in a country where there's a great free space for expression of contrary views, even at times expressed in very robust fashion, and I have immense respect for that process. I will reach out not only to those who agree with me. The kind of cheerleading mode, I think, is not always conducive to change and to progress. I will reach out to anybody who wishes to engage with me, to debate, to discuss. I will listen, and I hope in due course that I will manage to persuade those, particularly those who may doubt my integrity, that I'm not sure I could do much more to try to persuade them otherwise on the basis of what I've done before. But going forward, yeah, I will engage.
Thank you.
I'll make three observations. One is, sorry, don't want to shortchange you, David. Right. The first is that I think history has shown that the judgments of the UNHCR at the time, how correct they were, the crimes against humanity and others that were addressed. The first observation. The second is I don't want to extend into a partisan characterization of this. This is an institution that belongs to all Canadians, all political parties, but truly all Canadians. All Canadians today and in the future too, because what we do with the institutions we serve resonates down through the years, and it's part of what I referred to in my remarks in French about the example and how the institutional change that Madame Arbour has brought isn't just about the institution, but the norms and the standards that have changed. And my third observation is that the sun is shining. It's spring. It's a time of hope, confidence, dignity, and a bright future for our country. Thank you.
And perhaps I'll close with a question. This is from Madame Arbour, sort of a big picture. Think about things. You were born in Montreal. Louis Saint Laurent was the Prime Minister. Queen Elizabeth II was about to appoint the first ever Canadian Governor General, Vincent Massey. You'll be the first Governor General to be appointed by a monarch other than Queen Elizabeth, which is quite remarkable. We've had the Bill of Rights in your lifetime. The Charter has come in your lifetime. I wondered if you, and we're now looking at a Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces who's a Quebecer, and the Chief of Defense Staff is also a Quebec woman. It's quite a series of changes in your lifetime, and I wonder if you'd care to reflect on the change in leadership here in Canada through those years, and if you have some thoughts about, was the Charter a bigger deal than the Bill of Rights? I caution you'll get in trouble with conservatives on that answer, but go ahead.
Well, you know, I'm not going to get into trouble right now because I'm going to give myself, if you'll allow me, the next few weeks before I actually assume my functions to reflect on many of this historical trajectory, where we came from, where we are today. I'm much more interested also in where we're going and what's ahead of us. But please just give me time to reflect on all that. And I hope to have something a little more fully baked for you in the future.
Merci.
Thank you. This puts into our
Thank
press
you
conference. Ce qui met fin à notre conférence de presse. Thank you.
We'll go this way.
There we had the official announcement from Prime Minister Mark Carney at the...
So there you have it, kids and cubs. Hey, we had an unexpected bonus Beaver because we had our show and we had a little bit of a watch party to go along with it, tacked up at the end. And I see that I am fuzzy again, so let me take care of that so that we cannot allow Restream the privilege of denying you access to the splendor. Sorry, couldn't keep a straight face. Wow. Listen, comments in the chat, very similar. Really weird. For a great part, questions from the journalists. I don't know about you, but I found it particularly offensive that the very first question was one about money rather than one about her, and already looking for a potential scandal or trying to get her to take a controversial position on something before she's actually even been sworn in. Very weird. Another question about her opinion on a past appointment. She and I'm glad that she said she has no opinions because she's not supposed to have opinions on past appointments. So it's just that's just a waste of a question to ask. But again, a journalist who asked it, who clearly can't quit Trudeau yet. He's gone. He's not coming back. Jeez. And then, of course, a question soon after about what her position is on the monarchy. Again, because in Quebec in particular, not everybody's necessarily as fond of the monarchy. And therefore, she's a French Canadian. So therefore, let's create a little opportunity for you to step in it there. Every single opportunity was sidestepped. Both of them are extremely good. Now, of course, there's a kid that made a comment in the chat that I thought was particularly astute here when they said that, well, basically, given her pedigree and everything that she has done in her life, and the delicatesse that she needs to have with words, especially when you're a justice, particularly when you're justice on the Supreme Court and an international criminal court, it's going to be very hard. There you go. It was Kajillian. She's a former justice, so good luck getting her to misspeak. So yeah, not particularly cool with the questions. Bringing what. Listen, conservatives hate activist judges. Okay, you bring that in, but you bring a comment from Vic Tace. I mean, like, come on, man. The guy who stooped the babysitter? Really? That's the person whose comments you're gonna hold up at this time as worthy of something to being reacted to? Like, come on. This is not serious here. Great responses from both. You could see that the prime minister sometimes took the question that was set to bait because, and that was exactly the right thing that he was supposed to do, especially when you make a nomination like that, especially when she's going to be the representative of the head of state. You defend that. You put your body in the way. Prime Minister did that a couple of times. There was at least 2 times where he took a question that wasn't really about stuff like this, but was managed to bring it back a little bit to the moment, which was good as well. Also, can't help but notice here, is anybody surprised that a man as accomplished, as thoughtful, as respected, um, in all the superlatives you could use here, as is Prime Minister Mark Carney, serious, thoughtful, rigorous, would pick a governor general that possesses very similar qualities. Justice Louise Arbour is a very serious person, probably one of the greatest legal minds we've ever produced. As the Prime Minister said, if you're listening to her biography up until the point that she gets to the Supreme Court, which already is, within the country, the height of achievement when it comes to the legal profession. There is nothing higher than a justice on the Supreme Court of Canada. And then from there, after 5 years, that's just going to be a platform for me to go on to even bigger and bolder and bigger things, right? Because justice of the Supreme Court would be enough to satisfy a lot of people. Would be beyond the wildest dreams of some people. But no, she went on and on to international courts, right? And then, of all the courts, the most sensitive ones, right? The ICC and the ICJ, those 2 courts are, again, you need the best of the best of the best of the best of the best involved in that. And again, gone fuzzy a little bit for a second, but it seems I'm back. Who also appears to have a little bit of humility, if a lot of people have been making the comments. So despite all the ridiculous accomplishments, seemed a little embarrassed and shy by all the praise. But she's earned it. She's earned it. She deserves an introduction like that. And please make a note to myself to ask Mark Carney to write my introductions for me, if ever I need to be introduced anywhere someday. Because man, that man knows how to deliver an introduction. That's all I will say. Holy crap. So yeah, when you think of someone, Mark Carney, a global superstar, rock star in his field, Louise Arbour, the same thing. Look, I'm trying to rack my brain, trying to think of someone that would have that combination of accomplishment and seriousness and credibility and legitimacy and rigor. And I'm having trouble. Somebody that would be at the level, at least, that Mark Carney possesses for those same types of things. He picked a governor general somewhat in his own image. Think about it, kids and cubs. Currently, right now, our head of state, the king, just knocked it out of the ballpark when he went to the United States. And with dry British wit that went over the heads of a lot of people, pretty much spanked the U.S. for everyone else in the Commonwealth who understands that type of humor to understand clearly. We have a prime minister who's a global superstar who goes to Davos and delivers a speech that rocks the world that people will be analyzing and quoting 30, 40, 50 years from now. And you have certain people after his trip to Armenia posting stuff like leader of the free world. Some of the politicians, not only the politicians, kids and cubs, but even our editorial cartoonists can't help but notice, kids and cubs. This is Mr. I think latest if I can get the link to open, I will show. But yes, I've actually seen some of the officials. Like, there's been a whole bunch of tweets after that conference in Armenia from a whole bunch of delegates that were there, and all of them ridiculously complimentary of the prime minister. Like I said, and one of them just said briefly, that was it, leader of the free world. And I guess I don't know if Theo Medaka saw it, but here you have a cartoon of a super giant Donald Trump, so giant that we can only see him from like half of the chest down. Of course, notice the "Hold me closer, tiny hands" right here, and of course, Mark Carney got a David and Goliath dynamic going on, smacking him on just above the cankles with a hockey stick, and Donald going, "Ow, what the?" and a little sign called "New Global Leader." He went and got himself a governor general that is that accomplished. The king is knocking it out of the park. The prime minister is knocking it out of the park, and now the representative of our head of state not only is someone that has a long track record of knocking it out of the park, but also as a moment of the most delicious irony and super passive aggressive Canadian attack that we are so good at. Someone who has prosecuted war crimes when the guy south of us, who so desperately wants to annex us even though we have nothing he needs, is, for all intents and purposes, many people are saying, a war criminal himself. That's gotta hurt. Oh, man. Yeah, there you go. Kid Bucky, Taze, a philandering deadbeat, was among the most intolerant and offensive cons of his time. I know. And I think he got appointed to the bench, I think, after. Listen. I would doubt the qualifications. Let's put it that way, to have been granted that appointment. But there you go. Kit PNC Bio, I can't believe we get such a great Governor General. She's been a personal hero since the 90s. There you go. Kit Nona Carol, another good move by Carney. Kit PNC Bio, yes, you're right here. You have to be pretty special to leave the Supreme Court early because you have more important things to do. Hi, Supreme Court. Yeah, I know you need me, but it turns out I'm needed elsewhere. Wow. So yeah, you guys have all this wonderful comments. I can't wait to read all of them on my own time, kids and cubs. But given that we're already well past the 3 hours mark, I am going to say, kids and cubs, that's the end of the show. I'm pulling the rip card and calling time. So that's the end. This went on way longer than I was expecting to today, especially considering the lack of sleep. Fortunately, because we had a little watch party in between, I was able to rest my voice a little bit because I was fading a little bit there for near the end of the show. well, what I thought was going to be the end of the show before we extended it. But kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show with a bonus viewing party. If you liked us and you like this, well, then, you know what? We like making this for you. So we hope that you did. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us because we really appreciate it when you do, especially when you include a little something of your own when you're sharing it, stating why it resonates with you because that is advertising that we simply cannot buy. You are our word of mouth and you are our best promoters. So thank you for all that you do. And since we are talking about all the wonderful ways that you help us, well, then, kids and cubs, there's this way too. If you happen to not be on our YouTube page right now, you can scan that QR code and that will bring you there. And could we please ask you to click on like, share, and subscribe, particularly subscribe, but all three of them, because that definitely helps us with the algorithm and helps people find us. And if you happen to be watching us not live, but on your phone, and you have the opportunity to offer us some hype points, please do, because that helps a smaller audience shows and channels like ours get noticed. And we appreciate everything that you do to help in on that front. If you would like to help in other ways, kids and cubs, well, hey, that QR code is going to bring you to the Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, where you can contribute to making sure that you keep your favorite beaver nice and moist. The cup needs beaver moisture. Yum, yum, because a moist beaver is a very happy beaver. And doing the Price is Right thing. Ooh, ah, oh. So yes, please, if you could buy your favorite beaver a cup of hot chocolate or your favorite grizzly a mug of hot chocolate with a little add a beaver, add a grizzly, it really makes our day. It adds a little bit of sunshine. And we really appreciate it because what you invest in us, we invest back in the show and invest back in you. So we are grateful for your contributions. If it weren't for you, we certainly wouldn't be in our sixth season. That's for sure. So thank you for keeping us going. Kids and cubs, if you'd like to donate in other ways, not through the coffee page, you can donate on our YouTube page via super chat and stickers and memberships if you'd like to get one. And of course, if you are doing the Buy Canadian thing, if you are participating in the boycott of the United States, well then, kids and cubs, you need to go to our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, and send us a bank transfer, because that transaction goes from your banking institution to ours. Everything takes place in Canada. No US CE Tech Bros get a share of your money, and plus we get 100% of your donation, which is a nice little bonus. So we appreciate your help. And if you are not able to contribute financially, please do not worry a bit about it, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us, and we want to hear from you. And right there, that email address right there that I just gave you, that's where you can write to us. Please write to us. We like letters. Let us know what you think about the show, good, bad, or ugly. Maybe you have some suggestions for the True North Eager Beaver interview project. Maybe you have some political questions that you would like us to answer. Maybe you have some questions about how we put the show together that you would like us to answer. All of that good stuff, please. Maybe you just need some Dear Abby type advice. Hey, I'm all ears. I can't guarantee you I got good advice, but hey, ask away. If we can help, we will. And of course, kids and cubs, also send us your good news to make the doom scrolling a little lighter and more bearable. We really appreciate it. If you want to reach us on our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, also on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home on the web. We have the unofficial Damn Fam Discord started by you to keep the conversation going. If you want more Damn Fam when I'm not on air, go there. You have the most wonderful people, best Damn Fam in all of podcasting, and great community there. And of course, the Damn Fam Instagram run by Kit Uncover. We also have our Beaver Bites Substack there. And if you don't have time for the full show, thanks to Kit Uncover, who takes some longer clips, we've been putting them under the video tab. So sometimes if you don't have the time for full show, well, then you can grab just a nibble. with a couple of short videos. So we're trying to increase different ways, create different ways for you to be able to enjoy our content. And we thank you so very much for everything that you do to help us and to get the word out. Remember our hashtags, Kids Who Cook, Kids Who Craft, and Kids Who Cultivate, because we want some ideas and we want to celebrate your creativity as well. Thank you for all that you do. Kits and Cubs, because democracy is something that you do. Hey, we have a petition for you, Kits and Cubs. It is petition E7340, which is a petition to the House of Commons that calls upon the House to invoke its authority under Section 53 of the Supreme Court Act to refer the constitutionality of Alberta's Justice Statutes Amendments Act 2025 to the Supreme Court of Canada and to direct the Foreign Influence Transparency Commissioner to immediately investigate the meetings between the Alberta Prosperity Project and the Trump administration, because there's possibility that there may be a little foreign interference going on and some disloyalty for sure, perhaps stuff that would meet the legal definition of sedition or treason, maybe, perhaps, don't know. But as Dolly Parton might have sang in the best little whorehouse in Texas, if there actually was something dirty going on. You know, there's something dirty going on. A lot of goodwill and maybe one small thrill, but there's something dirty going on. By the way, I saw that somebody mentioned Dolly. She had to cancel her Vegas residency because she's still taking care of her health. And she put out a video the other day. And of course, she lost her husband of a long time not too long ago. So gave it a little message on how she's doing and shared it on our socials because even though it has nothing to do with politics, it is a proven scientific fact that a little bit of Dolly makes every single day just that much better. So I like to help. Oh man, Kids and Cubs. Let's see what else do we have. I think that's everything for the democracy is some. Oh yes, the petition. Did I post the link? I did post the link, and there is another one that is circulating that somebody did send me. I'm sorry I didn't have it handy for you today, Kids and Cubs. Although I will take a very quick look because I think I remember where it is. I saw it, but I could be wrong. No, I am indeed wrong. But I will bring you the other one, the one about trying to get to somebody just creating a petition that says that maybe we should not have Skippy living at Stornoway anymore. Maybe. It could be a little petty, but hey, that's fine. Oh, well, hey, I got it right here. I just found it. House of Commons petition E7375. No, sorry. Let me rephrase that. I lied. E7395 is the other one. And Kits and Cubs, I will put a link in the chat here for you for this one. Here we go. And this petition here, 7395, reads, whereas as Canada enters a building phase, Prime Minister Mark Carney asked for cost-saving ideas, whereas since 1950, Stornoway 541 Acacia Avenue, Ottawa, Ontario, has been the official residence of Canada's leader of the official opposition. Whereas the main building has 19 main rooms, approximately 9,500 square feet, whereas Stornoway is served by a staff of 3, a chef, a chauffeur, and a household administrator, whereas the National Capital Commission manages this property, which is closed to the public, whereas Canada is the only Western democracy to fund a residence for the official opposition, and whereas this cost-saving petition is deliberately silent on implementation, we, the undersigned citizens and residents of Canada, call upon the House of Commons to stop funding Stornoway as the private residence for the leader of the official opposition. The sponsor for this one is Elizabeth May. Clearly stirring the pot. Open for signatures until July 30th. Just opened on May 1st. And of course, initiated by Cal Bourbon from Victoria, British Columbia. So there you go, Kids and Cubs. I think I put the link in 7395. So there you go. You have 2 petitions to go out and sign. And remember, Kids and Cubs, if you live in New Brunswick, in 6 days, municipal by-elections, and in 4 days, if you're in BC and a member of the BC Conservative Party, you should be receiving your ballots to vote in the leadership for the BC Conservative Party. Results will be announced on May 30th. There you go. Words of wisdom, kids, cubs. Get some sleep. And always beware of the snuggles. Sometimes they trick you. It could be a tough world out there, kids and cubs. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Actually, don't be aware of the snuggles. Always surrender to the snuggles. Snuggles are good. Snuggles are good. Now, audience participation. Kids and cubs, at the count of 3, may I please have a little bit of you saying, Mr. Beaver, may I please... Sorry, something's going a little... the thing just won't come up here for a second. Sorry. I'm trying to get the credits. There we go. Could I please have you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock at the count of 3. But if you want to take some extra time to scan that QR code to send us a tip, I can give you a moment. Okay, 1. I'm terrible, I know. I'm shameless. 1, 2, 3. Let me hear it. Oh, yeah. You know what? That sounded quite regal. And as your queen, I have to oblige because my life is one of service. Here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. There you go. Screen stayed on pause for a little second. I will not have technically a typical Canadians who make us proud today, because as I promised, I was going to present something that Kit Uncover sent us for a Dutch Liberation Day, which is another way of celebrating Canadians who make us proud. I know I mentioned I would mention Wab Canoe today, and I did intend to do that, and I still have the clip, but I've crammed enough into today, so we'll save Wab Canoe for tomorrow. Being very classy, of course. But here we have, thanks to Kit Uncover, the Heritage Minute. I'm sorry, I hope I called it the right thing. Heritage Minute, yes. With regard to Dutch Liberation Day, or the liberation of the Netherlands. So, kits and cubs, I'm going to play it for you, and c'est amour et bisous to our Dutch friends, Dankuvel. It's lovely to have your friendship, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to be your friend. All right, let's bring you that Heritage Minute, and we'll sign off afterwards. All right. It would seem that the link did not start. Oh, Restream, please, you gotta fix this. Hey, all right, let's try that again. I hate it when I don't get to stick the dismount. Okay, kits and cubs, enough about me. Enjoy this moment.
We fought our way through Italy and then headed for Amsterdam, sweeping for Germans along the way. Our worst fear was to catch a bullet in these last hours of the war.
I was 15 when the Nazis invaded the Netherlands. More than 100,000 Dutch Jews never came home. Our men were put into forced labor. By 1945, we were starving. The food drops gave us hope. And then, the Canadians came.
Before Amsterdam, I couldn't have explained why we were there, all those years away from home, but the Dutch showed us why it mattered.
Papa wanted me to bring some soldiers home to thank them personally, and that's when I first saw Wilf, and I invited him over that afternoon.
Marguerite Blaise married Lieutenant Wilf Gildersleeve. They moved to Vancouver where they raised 8 children. Today, the Dutch still remember the Canadians who liberated them.